This show is sponsored by Horizon HVAC, who you can count on for all of your heating and cooling needs. Today's episode is brought to you by Burns Roofing, your trusted roofing experts right here in Rhode Island. Whether you're in need of repairs, a roof full replacement, or just some professional advice, Burns Roofing has you covered. With their years of experience and commitment to quality, you can rest easy knowing your home is in good hands. Call Burns Roofing for all your roofing needs. On today's episode of the Mindset Radio Podcast, we're sitting down with Bruce Soscia. Bruce has deep roots in the community and has built a career that spans multiple industries, including acting and business consulting. His journey is a testament to resilience, hustle, and the pursuit of new passions. From embracing acting later in life and falling in love with the craft to becoming a dynamic force in the business world, Bruce balances a career in film and television. He's currently flying all over the country, bridging his acting career with his entrepreneurial goals while building a future that integrates innovation and creativity. We'll dive into his journey, explore how his Rhode Island roots shaped him, and uncover his vision for success in both Hollywood and the evolving crypto landscape. Get ready for an engaging and motivational conversation. Mindset Radio Podcast, guys, welcome back. We're sitting down with Bruce Soscia, a Cranston native. He was gracious enough to come in here and talk to us today. I know he's really busy with a lot of the projects that he's doing. And Bruce, we truly appreciate you coming in here. Welcome.
You got it, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So I want to start off with your upbringing and where you were born, what your childhood was like, and where it kind of led you to where you are today.
Talk about a long story. My mom and dad were actually high school sweethearts here in Rhode Island. And dad left for the Marines. Essentially I was the product of teenage love. You know, they were young adults, and dad was stationed in California, sent tickets for mom to come and have me born on the Marine Corps base. So I was born on a Marine Corps base in San Bernardino, California, believe it or not.
Damn.
Yeah. So and
how long were you there?
Not long enough to remember. I was there probably until I was like 2 years old or so. And then we were stationed in Yuma, Arizona. My kid brother was born there. We're 4 years apart. And not long after that, probably when I was about almost 5 years old, and my brother was an infant, mom and dad split. So mom took us back here to her hometown, to Rhode Island. And I plugged in kindergarten right away, and so I've been in Rhode Island since I'm 5 years old. So yeah, my whole school experience and all my cultural experiences was here. I very, very vaguely remember being in Arizona. You know, I'm 4 or 5 years old. Some of the things that stick out in my mind, of course, my dad, memories of my dad, because my dad actually died soon after that, believe it or not. So that was...
How old were you?
I was in my young teens, but mom and dad, you know, they once they split, I never saw dad again. And mom kind of, you know, kept us apart. And, you know, it's sometimes it's a surreal experience to... You know, I think a lot of these experiences that I talk about sometimes have given me empathy for children. So a lot of times in life when I meet young kids and I'll say like, oh, how old is your kid? You know, or whatever. And I'm 4, I'm 5. And a lot of times I kind of tap back into that mindset of that age group. And it's wild because it's always given me the advantage to be someone who's very sweet and kind to children. Because I remember, you know, some of the harsher experiences that I had when I was a little kid and the way that adults made me feel. Some were really nice and kind, and some were dismissive, and some were mean and hurtful. So I think I try to share that sentiment with my peer group, so to speak, to always be kind to children, because you never know if you're going to make an impact on them in a good way or a bad way. It depends on how you treat them, you know. So for me, I've coached a lot of sports, you know, in the years in Rhode Island. I had kids really young. I had my son. I was pregnant. I say I was pregnant, but we were pregnant essentially when I was 18. And my we'll call her high school sweetheart, I kind of repeated the cycle. She was 16 in 11th grade. So I started out with a hell of a backpack on my back in my young adult life. And I had another kid right away. So I had a son and a daughter fresh out of high school, and I was married, shotgun wedding. I was 20, she was 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not having a father when you were younger, did that shape the father that you are today? And do you try to, I never had a father that was he's here, but he's not around. So it kind of gave me an example on how not to be, not to be a dick, but the way I'm a father to my son today is kind of everything that I wanted as a kid.
100%.
Yeah.
And I actually say it a lot. It comes up a lot that the best parts of my adult life were and are being a dad. I love being a dad. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, and I flew up here to Rhode Island. I now live in South Florida, and my family's still all up here. And just being around my kids, man. My son's 29 now. My daughter's 27. I have a granddaughter that's 2. It's the best feeling in the world for me. I said the Thanksgiving prayer with my family yesterday, and I said to my family how it was my dream come true to be sitting there with my family and have my kids and my grandkids and my parents, essentially my mom and my stepdad, and some of my best memories. And I've had a lot of cool experiences in my journey, but was coaching my son in his sports.
Yeah, it is fun,
football
man.
and baseball and boxing. I mean, and my son is like the ultimate father's dream.
Yeah, you get to see
kid.
a different side of them when you're coaching them. Because
Yeah.
you get to see them mingling with their friends.
Sure.
You get to see their hustle. You get to see what drives them.
Yeah.
So, I coached my son for a good 6 years when he played football.
How old is he?
He's 14 now.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's a great age.
Yeah, he's big, man. Big kid, my size,
That's
my
awesome.
height. He's not playing football this year. First year in 10 years he's not playing, but he's boxing now and
That's
he loves
awesome.
it.
As long as you keep him moving, keep him active. But going back to your sentiment, I think when I knew that I was having a child, I was literally a child. I was 18 years old, and
Did you have family to help you with that stuff?
I got to say my mom has always been super supportive, and she's the best grandmother in the world. Always, always, always. But essentially we moved in together and had our 2 babies, and they're like, we call them Irish twins. They're about a year and a half apart. So a lot of people thought they were twins, my son and my daughters. They're so close in age. They're 1 grade apart in school.
Yeah.
But it was a nice package because my son would play Pop Warner football and my daughter was a cheerleader at the same level. So we'd all be at the same game at the same time.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience. And I think one of the things that I kind of am very proud of is I always, going to practices and games and all that, it would be me and my son in the car. And I'd look at him and I'd say, you're the best, you're the strongest, you're the smartest, you're the fastest. You get out there, and when it's time to run a lap, you get in front of the pack. And my son wasn't big. He was small. He was smaller than most of the other players on the team, but he played real big. He played with a lot of heart, and he always earned the respect of his teammates and his coaches. And he was very respectful. To this day, you meet my son, he'll shake your hand, look you in the eyes like a man. And I think that's a dying art. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of young men that weren't raised with a father, that weren't raised with that guidance, that mentorship to, take life head on, face your challenges and be a man. Just being that voice, like you said earlier, I was always the voice in his head. And I take a lot of pride in that, because even nowadays people say, man, your son's such a good kid. He's such a old soul. He's old school. He's this, he's that. And I know that's an echo of my work with him, and I'm very proud of that.
When you were a young kid, who was your role models?
I don't know that. I really can't pinpoint. I'd have to really think about that. I don't think I had a person or a thing that I aimed at. I think.
What was the type of person that you wanted to be?
I knew at a very young age that I wanted to be successful. And what I think in my mind, what that meant was to be respected. When I observed, what always caught my eye, I grew up in a very tight-knit Italian community. So I saw the guys with the Cadillacs and the pinky rings, and I worked in a lot of Italian restaurants when I was a kid and stuff like that. And, there were certain people who stood out, who had more energy or who had more persona, charisma, all that stuff. And maybe I've become a symbol of that in my journey. But I think at being a little kid, even being a preteen and washing dishes in the back room and coming out and peeking through the veil and seeing the Cadillacs and the cool cars and all that stuff and the who's who, I think I had no idea what any of that meant except for the energy that was carried in those rooms.
It was the energy.
Yeah.
100%, man. I used to see that shit and be like, first of all, the energy that they're giving off when they walk into a room, how people look at them, the respect that they get.
Sure.
They shake hands, they look at you in the eye, the confidence. That when I was a kid, that's what I wanted to emulate. Because I saw, how genuine they were, and also how honest. It was almost like there's no bullshit in that guy.
Right.
You can tell he's not.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. He doesn't care what people think of him. He's carried himself like that.
Like cliche phrases, and they all make sense.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, it is what it is. I mean, I grew up around a lot of no nonsense guys and a lot of guys that were very funny, and everything's a joke. Even if they cracked somebody in the head, they were saying a joke while they were doing it. They weren't mad and, look at me, I'm crazy. They were, look at me, say it again, but give somebody a slap or something. And I just always thought the world of that. I thought that was great. I said, man, that's so cool. And, you know, I don't know that I had confidence as a kid. I saw it, I observed it, and I'm like, man, when you say, like, what I would aspire, I guess, to be like, I think it was to have that kind of confidence. And I think for me in my journey, I had to find it. And it wasn't given to me. It wasn't impressed upon me. It wasn't ingrained in me. It was, if anything, I had to double the work because I had to fight the negative voices in my head of, you're not going to be shit. You're nobody. You're this, you're that. And it wasn't anything good. I had a lot of those kind of voices rattling around in my brain. So I think even to this day, I have a lot of really great friends, like a really small, tight-knit group of friends. And then I have millions of acquaintances, right? But really, I spend a lot of time alone. And maybe when I was a kid, I found that to be my peace, my solace. I was a paper boy. One of my favorite things to talk about is being 11 years old, having a paper route on my BMX bike, having the Providence Journal bag wrapped around my handlebars with 50-something papers or whatever. And then the Sunday papers, forget it. Each one was like, bigger than a telephone book. Yeah. So that's when Mom had to come out with the station wagon and we would go pitch the papers. But I learned at a very young age, like, if you want stuff in life, you got to go get it. Nobody's going to give it to you. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I was the oldest of 5 kids. My escape was work, and it still is to a degree. It's therapeutic for me. I actually really enjoy work to different degrees. And, in my age now, I think in the era I'm in, work for me is something that I can't wait to get up in the morning, and I can't wait to, set up business meetings and the next play.
Dana White says it best. He says, create a life that you can't wait to wake up to.
Yeah.
And that's what we're at. Every day, man, is a blessing. I wake up every day and I cannot wait to just get my clothes on, go downstairs in my office, and make it happen.
Yeah.
I got Stephanie walking in at 9:00. She's our assistant. She helps us with all the paperwork. I'm on the phone. We're doing this. It's the best feeling. Even like when we first, met, it was right to business. Yeah. How can we help each other grow?
Right.
What can we do for each other? Because that's what it's all about, is helping each other.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think that's the biggest compliment from a man to another man, is to ascertain where they're at, what their appetite is, and how can I help this person?
Yeah.
And to me, that's my fulfillment. When I find satisfaction in the day, it's you get the high five moments where it's like, oh, I just negotiated this unbelievable deal. But the between the lines stuff is the little wins along the way where it's like, I met this person, man, they're so great and cool, and you see the good in them and you see what they got going on, and then my brain immediately goes to, how can I scale them up? How can I help them grow? What do they need? And I think that's why I'm blessed, because I've seen both sides of the coin where there are other people that don't have that. They're looking at it like, what can I get from this person?
Yeah,
I don't have it. I'm not built like that. I maybe it's just from the different experiences in life, but for whatever reason, I always look at it like, how can I do something with this person, a collaboration or a growth process. And it really feels good when you can, put something together, or, you brought one of your friends to me recently with a really cool idea, invention / project. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about it and about him, so that I could figure out mental placement. Where can I put this kid? Where can I put this project?
The way you handled that meeting was perfect.
I appreciate it.
You asked all the right questions. You could tell that you were just like you were really into it, and you wanted to learn exactly what it was. And he felt that. Like when we got back in the truck, he was like, man, that was a great experience.
I think, the version of me you see now has not always been.
Yeah.
And it's been a hell of a growth process. I was way more rough around the edges. So people that look at me and think that, I'm this big scary guy with tattoos and muscles and a resting tough guy face. And
she didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
she was very
so
surprised,
happy.
man.
We left last night. Was it last night?
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. just like above and beyond the moon, because when you have good synergy with people that you do, even without you saying you want to help people, you have that energy and that vibe.
Oh,
So
thank you.
we were able to all talk, and we were growing just being in the same room together, talking and
those are the
imagining.
moments. Those are the moments for me where I've experienced that on the other side of the table. And just like we say, what did I look up to as a kid? But even now in business, in the last few years, I've sat in a lot of meetings, and at first I was more of a bystander, kind of. I've had some really good mentors along the way that kind of brought me to the table almost to observe and almost to like minimally participate. And one of the things I've learned the most is to really pay attention and to be hyper vigilant in the moment of when people are sharing with you. And I noticed that it's funny because once this was told to me, I really watch how people move in a room. I could be giving gold to someone, right? And the person next to them could be so disengaged that they're distracting them. And not only are they missing out, but they're distracting the person who's having the opportunity to engage because they want to talk about themselves so bad and they want to participate so bad that they're ruining the opportunity to learn. And I had to learn that, truth be told, to shut up and listen and pay attention. And the more I've, accomplished that discipline, the more I've grown, and the more, and the money comes with growth, personal growth.
Yeah, it does.
And before I used to be like, kind of like more of a shark in the water. Like, how do
Fast
I find
plays,
the
quick plays?
Yeah, now, and even now, it's funny. I have a really good friend that I've made recently in business, and he took a liking to me, and he, one of his, he pounds it in my head all the time. He's like, just listen. And I'm like, yeah. And in my head, I'm like, I am, but I'm already doing that. But his thing is like, and this kid's going on the Forbes list, like, and he's a little younger than me, and he's very accomplished, and I'm super impressed with him. And I see his whole thing is, man, just really listen, be a good listener. And he's like, you'll always grow. Because when you listen, when you dial right in and you're paying attention, you're not so worried about, but look at me, I have accomplishments, I have accolades. Who cares about that? You already know that. You don't need to tell that to somebody else. When it's time to talk and engage, or whether it's business or personal, whatever, really pay attention to the details, because there's so many lessons in there. There's so many clues. There's so many tells. There's, I actually started to study something recently. I'm going to share it with you, and maybe it'll help some of the viewers, but look this up, NLP.
Yeah, we were looking into it.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
I just started studying this recently, and man, I am overwhelmed with gratitude that, this person came into my life and shared this with me and the opportunity to study, because it's really good for me anyway.
Can you explain a little bit about what it is?
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I'll give you a little bit.
A brief.
It's really, my layman's terms version of it is rewiring your thinking. And we all have, through our journey and our experiences, certain things we do, or certain things we say, or instinctual reactions to moments or to conversations that give away clues. And, it's funny, I just caught myself doing it now. There's constructive memory, and there's, I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole, but there's basically like, we do things with our eyes. And I think it has a lot of advantages in business if you can really harness this information, because once you learn yourself and how you tick, you can rewire and reprogram. And I've kind of been doing that for years with the law of attraction and like manifesting. And I talk about this stuff a lot, where it's, I try not to say
certain words,
the negative words, like don't and never and always.
Good morning, great rising.
I try to rewire, and I call it is a discipline to come, even if you catch yourself saying something that, oh, I shouldn't say it like that. You come back and you say it the way you should say it.
You're rewiring.
Yeah. And the more you do that, the more you change.
Like, even if you said it the wrong way,
it's all right. You catch it.
Say it again, and you'll probably end up catching yourself saying it properly the first time.
And so the NLP stuff, it kind of goes hand in hand with that, where it's like you kind of use yourself as a baseline. You learn about what you do and what makes you tick, and then you start having conversations differently. When you look at people, you see what they do. and you're using your own baseline, like, ooh, he just looked up over there. That means he's making that up. He's constructing a memory to tell, delivering a message. So, and it's really, there's a lot more to it than that, but essentially, it's one of those things that I just recently, literally in the last couple of weeks, started studying, and I can't wait to like take another class or another session because I'm like, wow, this is so. I love psychology.
I do too, man.
Me too. And with NLP, what's amazing about it is it's a mixture of psychology, but also the study of the brain. So we really function with our conscious brain, which is like when people are listening and they're just responding just to respond. They're not listening to absorb it and to actually have a reaction. You know, and then with NLP, you're programming your subconscious brain, which is really the driver of everything that we do. Yeah. So it is a really deep program, and it takes 31 days of doing a new thing to reprogram your brain. So if you're consciously every single day saying, okay, I don't like saying, like a lot of people say, I'm dead. I absolutely can't stand it when my children say that. I say I'm alive. I feel I'm living with zest. Like you have,
people
because
might
if you
think you're
say
crazy
that,
for, oh, stop it. No, but it really is a thing.
It absolutely is.
I say it all the time. I have even family members that go, my anxiety. And I go, oh, and I cringe. I say, please, for the love of God, don't say my anxiety. You're basically saying, I own it. This is mine. I'm not. And when something's yours, you're not willing to let it go because you're protecting it. And that becomes a crutch.
Absolutely.
You know, forget my anxiety. You may have a legitimate struggle with anxiety that we can work on it.
Right.
But don't say my. That's the first step, is stop saying that. Stop owning it. You know what I mean? Or even worse diseases and dilemmas when people say my cancer or my, whoa, like it really goes back to rewiring, reprogramming the way you, because the way you speak is the way you think.
Right.
It's an extension of your thoughts.
You could talk yourself right into a sickness.
Of course you can.
Even if you break down the words that we say, like disease, it's dis-ease. You're not at ease with that thing. So it's incredible the way we can actually heal ourselves through words. And they've done studies with water. You talk to water negatively over and over and over, and when it crystallizes, it's in a different negative, chaotic form. But if you talk to water with a positive, loving tone, with beautiful music, then you'll see, like we do with the snowflakes, the crystal, the beautiful, elegant snowflake in water. It's just
and all the stuff we're talking about. I agree with you. I think a lot of this stuff has to do with one's own ability to want to grow.
True.
You know, some people don't want to.
Yes.
And they might not even say, I don't want to, but what they'll say in their actions is that they're content with being miserable, with being punching that clock and hating their job and hating their boss. And they almost have found this contentment, this solace in the complaint syndrome of like, woe is me, and oh, just my luck. And they say this stuff, and it's like, oh man, it's so cringy to me.
Most people that say that, they're in a real shitty position in life.
Of course.
I noticed.
It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
You know, you have to,
like a gambler.
And hopefully somebody listens to this and they say, oh my God, I do that. And they say, okay, what do I do? How do I stop doing this? Some people are going to, they're crazy. And that's fine. It's not for everybody. Like for me in my house, I have chosen to have a nonstop pursuit of personal growth and like self-improvement. And I pray to God every day. I say, God, and I used to not pray when I was younger. And I would say to people, oh, you need to pray, but I didn't pray. I didn't practice what I preach. And I, you know, in the last couple of years, I started to really make a more conscious effort to have faith that my prayers are going to be heard. Because maybe there was a point in my life, in my childhood, where God, please help me, and God didn't show up. And so maybe I taught myself that, what's the point? Why would I pray? So, and then later in life, now I look back in hindsight, I'm like, wow, all those hard moments, all those painful things I experienced were molding and shaping me. And I've actually, even just this week, I started to become thankful for the pain and thankful for the trauma and thankful for those moments that, you know, I could walk around and say, oh, I have PTSD from this and I have trauma from that. And like any one of us, we all have our own journey. And even the richest people and the people that look like they have it all, they have pain and trauma too. So we can acknowledge it, but we also have to find a way to harness that negative energy and put a smile on it somehow. And I'm not saying surface, like, oh, let me pretend everything's okay. I'm saying be thankful, have an attitude of gratitude, even for those painful moments, for those things that really kicked your butt in life where you're like, oh, that hurts so bad. Even the thought of it, when I think of it, it triggers all these emotions and I go off in a frenzy. And a lot of us have triggers and PTSD from different things in our life. But for me, maybe one of my keys to success has been somehow, some way I've been learning to kind of acknowledge those things and say, you know what? I get it now. I'm actually glad and I'm thankful. And that's really hard. It's like forgiveness. Yeah. It's hard to forgive people that have wronged you and hurt you because it's like a sting, it's a pain, it's a betrayal. But at the same time, when you do, it's the ultimate freedom. You know, I'm thankful for the people who betrayed me. You know why? They taught me a lesson. Maybe I was too vulnerable. Maybe I was too open. Maybe I was too friendly. Maybe my character flaw is I see the good in people. Yeah. And people have good in them. And some people, we all have good and bad in us, right? And it all depends what side we're feeding. But sometimes me and my journey, I've allowed folks that didn't really deserve that to be in my inner circle. But I saw the good in them. And I saw all the red flags, but I still allowed them. And we hear that in relationships. And relationships doesn't always mean intimacy with a man or a woman. It could be friendships. It could be business partners. Any of those things. And I think many, many times in my life, I allowed people to linger in my circle. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh man, how did I allow that to happen? But that's part of the learning curve. You have to experience those things because what happens when you get a little further in life and something much bigger, more grand is about to happen for you?
You'll have those lessons.
You'll have those lessons to help guide and shape your decision making. And you may or may not allow certain people to be in your inner sanctum because it's a worst case scenario when you are bigger and more successful to have people around you that truly shouldn't be there, you know, and it's okay. We're not, yes, love is the answer and we're supposed to be kind and all that stuff. But at the same time, you have to be very careful who you allow in your inner circle. You know what I mean?
Energy is real, man. Energy is so real. I like what you said about the pursuit of happiness. I say it every day. We're on a relentless pursuit of happiness and freedom.
Yeah.
You know,
growth.
Growth. You know, we do meditation a lot and the positive affirmations and that's big for us. And you
so
were,
important.
And you were saying too that there was moments in your life where you were praying and you didn't get it. But I think that's just we weren't ready to receive it.
100%.
You know, and
you don't see it in those moments.
You never will.
Yeah. It's hindsight is 2020, right?
Exactly. So you were 27 years old when you first started your barbershops.
Yeah.
Did you have any experience with cutting hair before that?
Zero.
So what made you want to do the barbershops and where did this business sense come from?
It's a good question, and I have some good answers for you. So, you know, remember, I have a family now. I'm 20 years old, and I have, you know, a son, a daughter, and essentially 2 babies, right? And I'm working construction, and I was an environmental field technician. I literally worked with hazardous materials, and it was kind of like the only real job I could get because I didn't finish high school. I didn't go to college. I had a GED essentially, and going back on that, it's almost funny to think about when I left school and my friends still were, you know, in school, and I went right to the GED office and I said, let me take the test. Oh no, you got to take class. No, just give me the test. And I took the 5 subjects and I got almost 100 on all of them. And I was in 10th grade so they gave me the actual test and I literally almost aced the whole thing. And I'm not saying I'm bragging about it, but it was they were like, what are you doing here? I said, I just want to go to work. And it was almost like, I felt like I couldn't wait to get started on my own. I just wanted to be independent. I wanted to go. And I definitely don't suggest that to anybody. I definitely chose the hardest path possible, having a kid young, you know, quitting school. And I wasn't qualified to do anything of substance, right? So, but I was very lucky. A friend of mine had this environmental construction job. Essentially, we were pulling gas tanks out of the ground. It was a big thing at the time, environmental. We're cleaning up groundwater. Chemically testing like 55-gallon drums. I was working with a chemist. So it was like really interesting stuff, but it was like 16, 18-hour work days. And I'm not afraid to say it was $8 an hour.
Wow.
And I was, 19, 20 years old. And
that was probably decent. I mean, my first job was $8.50 an hour at Dunkin' Donuts.
The only way I made a decent paycheck was because it was so much time and a half because the company like that, they weren't stupid. I was me and my buddy, we were kids. Everybody else in the place was 50-something years old. And here we are, 19, 20 years old. And they're like, you get the shovel. You're going in the hole. I had Tyvek suits and oxygen tanks, and I was getting lowered into acid tanks, scraping down the walls and, heave-hoeing 5-gallon pails of acid over my head. And I think even on the days when I was like, this sucks so bad, but I had those kids at home, I had a family, and I was like, it's kind of like that old school, the factory worker dad, and I just knew I had no choice. But I always had this little glimmer of hope in my brain that this isn't for me. Someday I'm going to make it, quote unquote. I'm going to be something bigger and better. And I had no right, according to my trajectory. I had no education. I had nothing, but I just had this strange sense of someday. And I've always held on to that. And, I go back in my mind sometimes. I'm like, who the hell did I think I was? Why did I think in my mind, when I watch these other guys twice my age and their back hurts and their shoulders blown out and this and that, and they're doing construction, I used to say, that's not going to be me. There's no way when I get to that age, I'm still going to be working that hard physically and trading money for time, or time for money. And, I had to start figuring it out. So I did that for a few years. I got a Class A CDL because I realized the guys who were the cleanest on the job site were driving the trucks. And I was always
getting a CDL?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is that tough?
No.
I heard that test is a motherfucker.
Well, it can be tough, like anything, if you don't study the hell out of it and really show up rehearsed and know, you got to be able to label and point out all the, that digital, all the stuff on the truck. But I was 20,
you gotta know sizes of the bolts and everything, right? The nuts, all that. Yeah,
it is a pain in the butt to going back in my brain. But I got my CDL. I started driving these tanker trucks, and I was sucking out waste oil out of Jiffy Lubes and stuff like going all over New England and New York. And I'll never forget that the first job I had before I even got in the CDL trucks. The boss says to me on the first day, he goes, "Hey, take this paperwork. Take the company car and drive up to Worcester, Mass from Johnston, Rhode Island." And he goes, drop off this paperwork and come back. And I was like, okay. And I literally went outside and I had a panic attack. I had never left the state.
Wow.
You never jumped on a never drove a truck like that on a highway?
It wasn't a truck. This is before the CDL. He gave me a little station wagon, but it was a 5-speed. I never drove a 5-speed.
Oh, shit. I got a funny story about
I
that
needed
too.
this job so bad, and I was so excited when I got the job. This is the first day now. I show up, and I'm all pumped out. I think I'm going to go, dig a hole or something simple that I can do. And he's like, oh, today's a light day. Here, bring this paper. So this is before smartphones. So mind you, there's no GPS.
You had the map.
I drove to Cumberland Farms. I got a map book for $20. It's probably the last $20 I had in my pocket. Wow. And I'm trying to figure out how to read this map book. And when in hindsight, think how funny that is. Worcester from Johnston, you get on 146, you go north. And you're in Worcester. But I was like, 146, what's that? I didn't know anything. I literally realized in that moment, wow, I'm screwed. This is going to be hard.
And once you get into Worcester, that can be.
But the point is, I was on this emotional roller coaster, right? So I finally, and now I'm I'm destroying this car. But I figured it out. Yeah. And I figured it out. And again, there's no support system. There's no smartphones. And I had a beeper, and a map. And I went, and I remember I found the place, and I was sweating, and I probably lost 10 pounds that day, and anxiety and stress. And I brought the paperwork. Oh, how you doing? Everybody was cool, and I'm thinking to myself, these people have no idea how mortified I am. Right? Just for a simple drive
the
and
transmission on the way
if
here.
you ask me that now, I'd be like, yeah, all right, I'll take the ride. But I remember I was a kid. I was literally a kid. I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't worldly. I knew the neighborhood. I didn't know outside of my stomping grounds, right? I hung around in Silver Lake and Federal Hill and Cranston and in Southside, and I didn't know outside of that. You go to Worcester, I was like, where is that? I've seen a sign on the highway. It says if you keep going that way, but I didn't know what that meant. It's crazy to think about. And now I'm flying all over the world, but so I had those kind of jobs early on, and then to your question about the barbershops, again, I had no business doing it. I wasn't a barber. Mind you, I'm digging holes with a shovel. I'm driving tractor trailers and tanker trucks. But that was kind of cool at a young age. I felt like I accomplished something.
Decent pay? Decent pay?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
Nothing to brag about. I paid my bills and the kids had everything, but
I mean, back then you make 800 a week for 1,000 a week. You're balling.
I probably didn't even make that.
Yeah,
bro. You know,
no kidding.
You know, I'm 48, so we're talking, 30 years ago, 25 years ago. I mean, the pay wasn't that great.
Yeah, 16 an hour was probably.
I was doing better than my friends, but they were out going to college parties, and I was, working 90 hours a week. And, taking care of my family, which I was always proud of. But I went to Rhode Island real estate school. I didn't finish. I was so bored. I was like this. I was a kid, and I was like, oh, my God. I thought I was going to go show houses and take pictures and put a suit on. And then taking the class was like...
I got through one of them, and I left.
I did, too.
I won,
I literally left with somebody in the class.
I left my books in the classroom, and I never came back. I paid like $400 for those books.
I did the same thing. I think I left and smoked a blunt with somebody. Back in those days, that's what, that was normal. But, I remember but I got the knowledge, a little bit of knowledge from it, and then I segued into mortgages. Mortgages were hot back then.
Loan officer?
A loan officer.
That's what I did too.
It was the first time putting on a suit and tie and going to the office, and now I'm here. Now what do I do?
Bro,
it was all math, and I was like, fuck.
Bro, I got into that in 07, 06, 07. I was a loan officer trying to close deals.
We all were. Those were the years where everybody was a loan officer.
I was making like 20 grand a month when I was like, I don't know, I must have been like 22 or something like that. I thought I was balling. And
it's going to be like this forever,
I'm
right?
I'm good. I got a career. I'm straight. I'm going to be able to pay for anything.
It was like a 2-year window for everybody.
A year and a half. Done. 08 happened. The business, the place went out of business.
Country wiped out.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody was a loan officer.
On that.
That's funny.
I was a truck driver. The next day, I'm a loan officer, right? Everybody else was the same thing. Like, I was a dishwasher. I was this. I was that. It's funny to think about. Everybody, I know. I got a guy. The next thing you know, you're wearing a suit.
So was it right around then when you started the barbershops?
It was soon after that. For a little while, I worked for the Big Dig in Boston. That was a cool gig.
Yeah, that's a cool job.
So all my friends that were on the Big Dig were like big union guys, and they were like outside, like working on the tunnels. I happened to have a friend that hooked me up inside. I had an office job, and I was like, wow. First time, besides the mortgage thing, I had an office job, but it was like the first real job, and I had like a title, and it felt like I was prestigious, and I'm in the big, the interim operations center for Mass Highway Department. So basically we oversaw all the cameras on the construction project to build the tunnels. And I was on the last couple of years of it. Every day the project was on the news, billions of dollars being wasted.
Yeah, the Big Dig was huge.
All kinds of embezzlement and this, that, and the other. I'm just a guy watching the cameras in the office, and I remember thinking, wow, this is so cool. And I remember we had VCRs. We had TV monitors and VCR, and if there was like, say, a car accident on the construction site, they'd be like, oh, go to camera 16 and zoom into the Charles River and this exit and I'm not from Boston, I'm from Providence. So and one of the qualifications to have the job, you're supposed to be from Boston, but I got a guy, he put me in, let me get the job. Oh, don't worry, he knows everything about Boston. I had no idea. I'm like, which camera? I'm like, I'm just hitting all the wrong ones. Oh yeah, that one.
Got it.
Fake it till you make it. It was one of those things. Half the time it's like the whole state police and all these important people that had to do with the project. Oh, you pull up camera such and such, and I'm like, I'm looking for the cheat sheets, and I get the thing on I put a VCR tape in when taping the incident to see for liability reasons, and we have to fill out all these forms. But each one of these experiences I learned, that one was all about paperwork and recording liabilities and like I remember people would come drunk in Boston out of a nightclub in like a brand new BMW and go flying off the highway, and we'd be like recording it and like crazy stuff. I saw that job alone, just going from Providence to Boston. I was third shift every night. I saw more stuff on the highway on the way there. It was insane. People coming at me drunk on the highway. Whoa. Or like cars flipped over. Like
93. That was.
Oh my God. A lot of it was in 95 in freaking Providence. It was just a crazy experience. But around that time, my brain started to think, all right, this project's winding down. I was making really good money. I was stacking a little bit. And I started saying, I always wanted a barbershop. I just thought it was so cool. I loved getting my hair cut. Typical Rhode Island guy, always with the lineup and staying fresh.
Once a week, every 5 days.
Like the barber lit up when he seen me because I was there all the time, So I just loved that experience. And I remember saying, man, around that time, barbershops weren't cool. They were cool in the fact of like it was like a community center, like you see your boys there and stuff, but they didn't have like flat screens and leather couches and boom boxes. Like it was kind of boring, like magazine rack maybe if you're lucky, and a black and white TV. So what I did was I put a business plan together without even knowing that's what it was called. I had no business doing this. I did like an executive summary, I would call it now, but it was bullet points.
Yeah.
And I remember just in my brain, I said, this is how I'm going to stay organized. And I said, I'm going to hire the best guys I know. I'm going to buy all this stuff secondhand, all the equipment. I'm going to find a good location that's central to multiple cities. And it's got to be near like a main traffic, throughway. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to come in. And then I knew I needed to market the location. So I used to design these flyers, and I hope statute of limitations is over, but I used a lot of paper and ink at the job I had in Boston. And I used to just literally take whole packs of paper and it had this Barber character with a scissor, and it would, it was like this whole layout and grand opening coming soon and this and that. And what I really did is I went out and found like 5 barbers that I knew at different locations that were really busy and really experienced and really good. And I invited them all over for dinner in my house with my family. And I said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And, I wasn't a barber. They had no business believing in me, but I think just my energy, my enthusiasm, my popularity, like they were all magnetized to me in some degree. And they believed in me, and they all literally left their jobs where they were making really good, consistent money, and they put faith in me. And I went in, I built this place. I had flat screens and leather couches. And when I say flat screens, this was when flat screens still had to back this.
Right.
DLPs.
The face was flat.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. So we had those on mounts, but it was nobody had that in a barbershop back then. It was like we were innovators, right? And it was GQ, Gentlemen's Quarters, GQ Barber Salons. And I had a partner for the first year. And I learned a lot of lessons about that and bought them out after year 1. I realized I was doing all the work, and I had this long road ahead of me of scaling up. I had a dream. I said, this is going so well. I'm going to open 10 of these, 12 of these suckers, and I'm just going to build a system. But I knew this guy's like dead weight. He's just walking around, I own this place, and he half the time wasn't showing up.
What was his job supposed to be?
Originally, I didn't want a partner. I just said, hey, you guys come work for me, and I was going to hire someone with a license because you need a license to put on the wall. And essentially he said, hey, I got the license.
He held the license.
He said, I'll apprentice you, but I want to be a partner. If I leave where I'm at, I want to own something. And I slept on it. I came back and said, you know what, let's do it. And on a handshake, we went 50-50, and we put up the money, and I built it all out. It was basically my dream, my vision, my plan. I had already had everything plug and play, and then he kind of came on and put a little infusion to match mine in the operating expense. And then I pounded the pavement, man. I ran around with these flyers and told everybody I knew. Day 1, it was gangbusters. The place was jam-packed. The music was good. I had a pool table, I had arcade games. I had all this stuff that nobody had. The SWAT team showed up. I guess the locals didn't like the fact that, or a rival barbershop saw that we came into the area, and they were like the next town over, but they were like the busy show. And I learned a lot about politics right away. And they said, you can't have a pool table. I said, well, I got the permit right here from you guys. I paid for it. And well, you can't have an arcade. And I said, well, why? And
what?
They said, because nobody else has it. No other barbershop has this. I said, I know, but that's why we did it.
That's bogus.
And then it became like attorneys and this and that. And they said, listen, kid, you just opened up. Do you want them to give you a hard time? Maybe just get rid of the stuff and just make your money doing the traditional business. And I had to concede because I realized, like, do I want to go? I just opened my first business. It's doing phenomenal.
Did you have other locations at that point?
No, we're talking like first month of business, I'm slammed. Every day we're packed, we're jammed. We got a line out the door. Like it was an overnight success.
Wow.
And I attribute a lot of it to the guys had their own book of business, and I did a lot of marketing. So it was a lot of new people from that area coming in. So the other area places that were busy, they felt it. Like, whoa, we're losing our market share. Everybody's going to this new place. Huh. And, so they're dropping dimes and trying everything they can to like slow my roll. But I didn't quit. I didn't lay down. I said, okay, take all this stuff out. And we just kept cutting hair, and we made
I don't understand why they wouldn't let you have is that still a thing?
Politics, bro.
I understand.
I'll tell you what, because
the
powers that be that made those kind of decisions were patrons of the competitor. So basically, this guy's venting, oh, these guys, all my people, I'm losing all my people, we'll take care of that for you. And they sent they sent the goon squad, and I kept saying, I don't understand. Like, I went to the town, and I said what I want to do, and they said, fill out these forms, pay this money, and here it is. I got everything you said. Well, I got no answer for that.
Were they threatening to shut you down?
Yeah, yeah. So I got rid of all that. I thought it was a great concept.
No, it is.
That's why I
see
did
that
it.
stuff anywhere. Still,
Right. So when we did it, it was like that was the talk of the time. People were coming from out of state, never mind neighboring cities. We were slammed. It actually made it like a huge attraction. And so I had to make that decision. Like, do I go hire lawyers and battle this unfair judgment, or do I just stay under the radar and like kind of almost play down? And I played it down, and we did well. And
did that change your business? Did it get less busy?
I think
You had already made your mark.
It was literally in the first few weeks that they came right away. And like kind of revoked what we had going on. It didn't make any sense, no rhyme or reason. But that's New England politics, you know. And I didn't fight it. I said, "Oh, no problem. Okay, no problem. Okay." Every time they would put an officer outside, I went out, gave him a water. Hey, you need anything?
Smart.
You know, but
Smart.
and they were tasked with harassing our customers and stuff. I mean, that's a whole, it's a Rhode Island thing.
Yeah,
but
you knew how to play it though.
Essentially, moving forward, like about a year into it, I knew that I wanted to open more locations. I knew that the guy I was in business with just wasn't getting out of bed and wasn't reliable and skimming money. Every which way, I was like this. But it taught me a lot for the rest of my life in business. There's things that I pay attention to because I experienced it already. So I did the right thing and I bought them all. I said, get an attorney, we'll write up a buyout contract, I'll give you back your initial investment. And it was just a way and I said, and you can stay. You could be you can rent a chair.
Did you have any other locations when you did that? Or was it just that one?
I did that before I opened more.
So what was the process like opening your second and your third and your fourth?
I think what happened was I started realizing that I was really good at business and in terms of like just understanding conceptually, like structuring a systematic approach, like crunching numbers and all. I never had any business acumen or mentors or school at that moment in my life where there was nobody like puppeteering me. It was just me thinking, I think if I do this, this, and this, it might work.
Yeah.
And it was really dummy blind faith. I feel like I think about the people who bought the first Bitcoin. They had no business. They were like, oh, it sounds great. And they did it. And now they're bazillionaires and they're not the smartest people.
Right.
Not all of them. And then people came on later on like, oh, that worked. Let's do it. But sometimes in the beginning, blind faith is, some of the best success stories. So for me, I went and I told the guys that were my teammates, listen, I'm going to open another location. I'm going to take some of you guys to the new one and we'll hire more people to fill in those blanks. It kind of was like a piggyback thing, but you guys will be managers, right? Yeah. And I opened another location. I made it really cool and it was a couple towns away and overnight success. And I was just like, wow, this is really working. And I stayed there myself and I primed the pump and I got it going. And that was kind of what I figured out around that time. My gift was relationships. Like I'd go to the local basketball games and hockey games and football games. And hey, you guys come in, you got a playoff game? Come in, I'll draw your numbers on your head. I'll give you this. So now the whole team shows up and their family and their cousins and brothers. But it was a good thing. We'll donate it. No problem. We'll stay there for, all night long. And next,
if you get somebody coming once, then they like their cut, they're gonna come right back.
And they're like, "Wow, this place is so cool. These guys are so cool."
Yeah.
And I was a young guy. I had all the Cadillacs with the big rims and the white walls and the boombox. And I was smart. I got out of the hood and I put these shops in the burbs where these kids are like, "Wow, this is so cool."
It's almost like the stuff that you saw when you were a kid on the hill. You saw the guys with the jewelry walking around confident. You took that and you used it in business and you placed that into the barbershop.
True.
You created that environment where people would come in and say, I want to be a part of this.
And then on the walls, you had the Goodfellas posters and Al Capone, this, that, and the other. Whoa, people. Now it's stuff I feel like is almost like beat to death, that whole genre. But I feel like we were like innovators in the point where I was bold enough to say, you know what, I'm going to make a business with this theme. And it's a barbershop. It was like the coolest theme ever. Yeah. So... And I didn't care. Some people, it wasn't for them, and that was fine. But the masses, they loved it. The majority loved it, and
especially in this area.
Yeah, and it was fun, man. I had so much fun. I met so many great people, and even the guys. Yeah, so many. I take pride in the fact that there's probably 100 barbershops in Rhode Island that spawned from me. Guys that I mentored, guys that I helped them get their license, guys that I helped them build their book of business, and they went off and started their own. And in the first few times it happened, it wasn't always in the best context. Like guys were almost like intimidated by my,
Your look.
charisma, I guess. And I say, I don't want to tell them, but I want to have my own. And then I had to learn how to like be okay with, because I took everything very personal when I was young. So it was like a betrayal. Like, why would you go down the street and try to take my guys with you, and you didn't even ask me for my blessing? Like, because I was very, very old school. Like, that's not loyalty. That's not respect. So, and I would always say, you know what? No problem. Just don't try to shake my hand when you see me. And that was the extent of me being like, you know, showing that I was displeased that you would do it in that way. And then there was other guys that came to me and said, hey man, you've been the best mentor. You've had my back. You taught me so much. You encouraged me to get my license. You did this, you did that. I'm ready to go on my own. Can I have your blessing? And I'm absolutely.
Yeah,
what can I do to help?
I love that, absolutely.
Can I be your first customer? You know, even though, yeah, I'm gonna lose this person that I care about and that I'm doing business, making money with. But I started to learn, like, when people come to you like that, how could you not see them and want to see them grow?
It's 100% respect.
Different situation.
Yeah.
So there are still, you know, lingering uncomfortable relationships out there where people were like, and they were kind of took a position of like,
they did it the opposite way.
They did it a way like, and they almost, and now mind you, I'm the guy that took you from having no business, you had no customers, you had no skills, and I brought you in, put you under my wing, and you started sweeping the floors, and I took the time to teach you and mold you and shape you and groom you to the point now you're very successful. And instead of coming to me and say, hey man, thank you so much, and it'd be like,
just bounced.
Hey guys, he's not around. I'm gonna go down the street. You guys should come with me. And the few people that did it like that, I have no use for them, because even to this day, it's not like I'm mad. I was no beef. It's just like I don't respect people that move like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't really think about it anymore, but because we're on the subject, I think about it a little bit, and I realize I've grown a lot, and I also wouldn't put myself in certain positions again where I give so much of myself in certain scenarios where you got to keep some secret sauce for yourself. You know, if you give all your trade secrets away, you're almost hurting yourself unintentionally, but that's inevitable, you know?
So what was your exit strategy, and how old were you?
So for a while, it was just a free for all. Like, let me just go out there, and it was like gunslinging, man. I was finding locations, and my whole systematic approach was find a low overhead and in different cities where it didn't matter where it was, because as long as I have a low overhead, I can cover the nut with very minimal effort, and then everything else is a bonus. So it's a very simple strategy.
Just low bills.
Hole in the wall, go in there and, you know, renovate, make it look as cool as you can, put some cool guys in there, all characters, you know, and it's the same theme. You know, sometimes we went through waves where I changed it all to a sports theme, and, you know, and I always kind of went back to the original theme because that always worked better.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you know, where we are demographically, people just like the movies, and they like the Goodfellas.
Well, at that, what year was? I mean, because at that time, Sopranos was out. Yeah, everybody in Rhode Island wanted to be a wise guy.
Everybody wanted to be in a tracksuit. Yeah.
Sopranos was like the biggest thing that hit around this area. Yeah. So it was probably around that scene.
Definitely 100%.
It was in that era. So yeah, people were eating that up.
Yeah. So, you know, coming to my place with Cadillacs and all these movie posters and all this stuff, it was like a piece of that world that everyone was magnetized to, especially around that time frame. I started in January 2005. I think I sold my last couple of locations before I moved to Florida almost 4 years ago. So we had a pretty good run. It was almost 20 years.
Wow.
Incredible.
Wow, yeah. Good for you, man. I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, and awesome. You know, I got to say, though, like, the first 10 was like this rocket ship trajectory. 10 years. And remember, my kids were like maybe 6 and 8 when I started, and when I finished, they were they were out of high school. Jeez. So like their whole childhood, their dad was like the coach of the team, but he was the cool coach, but he was also the guy with the cool barbershop. So my kids kind of, you know, had that advantage that plays into what we talked about earlier. Like, I was the ultimate dad, and that's I'm very proud of that. I gave my kids somebody to look up to. I gave them those voices of confidence, of motivation, of inspiration. All the dads come to me, the new dads, and man, I want to be the kind of dad you are. And to me, that's a huge compliment, because I know intentionally it didn't happen by accident. I set out to be, you know, a good dad.
That's awesome,
and I love it. And I'm watching my son right now with his daughter. It gets me emotional. It's such a sweet interaction. He's so proud and happy to be a dad, and his little 2-year-old climbing all over him and standing on his head, and you know, and he couldn't be happier. And
That's crazy. That's awesome.
And your son
surreal.
joined the military too, didn't he?
Yeah. That was a
What was that
really
like
hard
when he,
time for me.
Yeah, what was that like? Because he did end up going overseas, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like another irony. So I'm going through a divorce. My kids are a junior and senior in high school. I'm trying to keep the peace. We have this big fancy house, new cars, everything that I worked hard and built. And I said, listen, I don't want to fight. I don't want to argue. I want my kids to be happy. Let's give them peace. You know, I'll stay away and I'll interact with them. And I just don't want to argue, you know. And, you know, that's never a good thing or a fun thing in divorce, right? So, and, you know, in hindsight, everybody has to take responsibilities for their actions. And I've said it numerous times, like, I'm not a perfect person. You know, we all carry baggage from our childhood and we all have, you know, sins or mistakes that we make that we wish we could take back. So
Absolutely.
I definitely didn't always do the right thing in life in general, but especially in some of those moments. But one thing I wanted to protect my kids and give them the ultimate childhood. And I feel confident that I did, but it was a really hard time going through a divorce. And the hardest part for me was looking at my kids and seeing the pain they were in. And a lot of people say, hey, at least they're older. They'll get it. And it never felt like that to me. It always felt like I see people go through stuff like that when their kids are little, and maybe it's less abrasive because they're not as in tune with, you know, the realities of the conversations and the context and the different, you know, painful moments or things being said. And it was really hard to see my kids struggle with, you know, that time frame where, you know, their family was splitting up and going a different direction. And around that same time, so I moved one way, my son staying with me and my daughter stayed with her mom. And, you know, I'd spend as much time with my kids. And then my son, we always talked about him going to the military to some degree, right? My whole thing back then was maybe you go to like the Air Force or one of the, what I call like the smart branches, you know, protect yourself. You know, I'm a parent, right? I'm not gonna say, hey, go to the front lines. And my thing was like, go, you know, if you're gonna do that, do it for college. Like go get an education out of it, yada, yada, yada. And I think what happened, we started going to recruiters and testing the water, seeing what kind of jobs are available. And ultimately, one day my son comes home and he goes, hey, I went with my buddy and we signed up. Now, mind you, I had brought him to different meetings, me and him, different branches, different opportunities, and nothing was panning out as far as like time frame, this job, oh, I really want that job. Oh, they're not leaving for a year and a half. And what about this one? Oh, there's a waiting list and this and that. And so he went with his buddy without me one day, and he comes home. I signed the paper. I'm going to the Army. And I had a choice to make, to be like, what are you doing? Or to be like, all right, you're a young man, like you're making decisions. And I said, okay, so tell me about, you know, what did you commit to? And what it boiled down to, his buddy was going full-time to the Army. And my son thought, you know, my dad won't be upset because I'm going to go reserves and I'm going to do what he always put in my head, like play the game and get college out of it. So his buddy who goes full-time, he goes to his training and all that, and goes to like Texas. My son goes reserves, immediately gets called to Iraq.
Wow.
And now, mind you, I'm going through this messy divorce. I'm upset and disappointed at a lot of the way things were being handled. And then, boom, my son drops that bomb on me. Hey, Dad, by the way.
Jeez.
Going to Iraq.
I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know reserves could call you up like that quick.
That's exactly what it is. That's what
yeah.
you're signing
Really?
up for. So it's a numbers game. It's a luck of the draw. So go figure, right? So around that time, so he's away in, it's funny because he went in to be an electrician. And we have family members and friends who are electricians. Yeah, I'll do that. It sounds like a good trade. He goes in and I think how it plays out is one of his superiors pulls him aside one day and he says, hey, what about being a plumber? And my son's like, you know, yes or no, sir, or whatever. I can imagine, right? Like how they got you so stiff. And the guy's going, you should be a plumber. And my son's like, well, I'm in school to be an electrician. You should be a plumber. And he basically kind of like guided my son's steps to say, the group that the school you're in right now to be an electrician, if you stay on this course, as soon as it's over, you're going right to the Middle East.
Oh, wow.
But if I switch you to be a plumber, you start over because you maybe say he was like 5 weeks in or however many weeks, he would be able to tell you. But you're gonna start over. You're gonna go to a different school, a different place. You're gonna be a plumber, but that'll give you when you're finished here. Now, mind you, he's in boot camp and then school, so he's away from home for months at this point. And of course, when you're a kid and your parents want to see you and you want to go see them and your friends and all that, so basically the way the cards fell, he would have literally not even been able to come home from this extended time away. So this guy saw that on the paperwork and was keen enough to kind of tell my son, hey, maybe let's drop you out of this electric school and put you in plumbing. So when this one finishes, you can have 29 days, go home for 29 days, but you're still going to the Middle East. Yeah. So my son was like, okay. And he calls me and he's like, Dad, I'm like, what's up? And he basically tells me that. And I'm like this. I did not want him to know, but I'm crying my eyes out and I'm sick. Like my baby boy, he's going to the war. Like, are you kidding me? And this kid went to the freaking reserves. I thought he was going to go to CCRI.
Right. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And now it's, so he goes through that. He goes to plumbing school, comes home for 29 days. We had a blast. We spent all kinds of time together and it was really, really hard to see him off. But
yeah, you must have really took advantage of those 29 days, man.
Yeah.
Did you see his growth after that time? Because boot camp changes a person, and so does that extracurricular learning.
For those 29 days you saw it?
Well, yeah, I mean, he came home, he just got his butt kicked for months, and me, as much as I thought I was like, this coach of the year dad, he was, my kids are very entitled, right? Because I gave them everything, you know what I mean? So almost in a bittersweet way, but he needed that though. Yeah, in hindsight, he needed that moment of his life to go and see what he saw and experience what he experienced and have that structure.
It's
and
humbling, it is.
Yeah, and I think it gave him a better baseline in life than I gave him. Yeah. Maybe me, it was a little too soft. Maybe it was like, I give him what he wants, and it is hard. I think parenting is a hard thing because you want, especially coming with the way I come up, nobody gave me anything. Yeah. And I'm over here giving my kids everything. And
I think that's the cycle.
We're struggling with that right now.
We go through that same thing right now, bro.
It's hard to find balance.
Yeah. It is. It's like anything he wants, he knows he's going to get.
There's a cushion there.
So there's no working for my own stuff. He made a comment.
It's a hard job.
He made a comment the other day. My partner goes, hey, when are you going to come work for the company? He goes, what do you say? He goes, I'm not working. I'm just going to use my dad's money.
Use my dad's money.
I'm just going to spend my dad's money.
And it's funny, but it's not.
I know. We laughed, but it's like, oh, he's serious, I think.
We're totally accomplished because we gave our children everything we didn't have. But like you said, the military gave him another viewpoint, another perspective of what he had never seen. So he's a better man for that because he 100%. Has the best and he's going to give his daughter the best.
Right.
Plus, he's got that extra grit to him.
That's right.
Appreciate everything you have.
Yeah, and things aren't as uncomfortable when you've been through that amount of discomfort.
Absolutely.
Just the basic training alone. I mean,
yeah.
So, I mean, so going back to him, I mean, when he went away, then, first it was hard just knowing that he's in training, and I'm disconnected from my baby boy. He's been on my hip his whole life. I've been coaching his sports and driving him around and having those one-on-one convos 24/7. And now he's gone for months. And then boom, he comes back. We spend time, and then I'm literally watching this kid leave. And you think the worst thoughts. In a situation like that, how do you not control your thoughts of, man, my God, what if something really bad happened? So I think around that time I was really, really unhinged, and it was hard. That was a hard period in my life, because, the dad thing was always the best part of my life. And now it's and I'm going through this divorce, and my daughter's like, I don't want to hear it. So she kind of just exit stage left away from both her parents and going with her friends. And it was it was a tough period, I think, for everybody involved. And when, then ultimately, my son spent his 19th, I believe, birthday, Christmas, all those holidays, he was gone. He was overseas for so long. And I remember sending care packages, and they would come back.
The best.
They'd have stamps from all over the world, and they'd be back on my step, all busted up, because he was in the desert in Iraq from this camp to that, station and this and that. And you don't get your mail in those scenarios. You're moving so much. There's no Pony Express. You know what I mean?
What kind of stuff did you used to get? Did you get care packages?
Care packages were like Christmas every single time, but I was on a forward operating base with the Army. I was Air Force, but stationed with the Army, and we had a little tiny post office. So for us, because I was in hospital, I worked with surgery. So what's crazy for me listening to your story is, unfortunately, men or young men, 19, 20 years old, were coming on the surgery table.
Yes.
So like your son, it was for you to think the worst. The worst was actually happening. So it's good
There's
that
so many horror stories.
He just, it's a success story that he came back.
I think the hardest thing from my perspective, him coming home ultimate, high. He's in one piece. He's home.
Yeah, for sure.
So there was a time for a few years where I definitely noticed something in his eyes was a little different.
Yeah.
And then more so seeing, he got some news a few times where some of his, fellow soldiers committed suicide after Iraq. And man, that was a hard thing to watch my son struggle with that. These are my brothers. I was at camp, so to speak, with these guys, and he's a young man, young 20s, and I could see firsthand how hard that is. And you hear about that stuff all the time, but until you feel it, I can't even imagine those parents, It's one thing you have this, something bad happens to a kid off at war, but for them to make it home safe, but then ultimately allow their emotions and mental illnesses or instability to overcome them to a point where they take their life. And I think, right now I'm working with a team, with some philanthropy work where huge focus on veterans.
I was just going to bring that up.
Huge focus.
Yeah. You said something to me the other night that really resonated with me, and how you just pay it forward. Like everything that we're doing and everything in life is all about giving back. And talk about how you kind of figured that out, and when you kind of adjusted your thinking to, the success that you receive, you want to do everything in your power to give back. Was that through those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I had some really good mentors that I feel like if you don't have mentors, or if you don't allow yourself to gravitate to people who have more experience and more success than you, then you're going to not get too far.
Yeah, I agree.
And I've been very fortunate at different points in my life where I've had folks around me that took a liking to me, that filled me with the knowledge that they had, and that got them to the point where they were at. And in those moments in my life, I looked at them, in high esteem, like, wow, this person's so accomplished. And I would listen to what they had to say. And when they saw that I was interested, they would share more. So I've become the mentor, and I still have mentors, but I've become someone that enjoys sharing and paying it forward. So when I have information, or even as simple as like, an investment opportunity, and I know that there's other young men around me that might have some money to invest, it's not like, hey, invest in this because I think it's a good idea. It's more like, hey, I wish somebody told me to do this. And so I try to share what I learn, and I know that it's a reciprocal, whether you call it karma or paying it forward. I know that, it's just the way the universe works, right? So how would I be if I only kept the knowledge for myself? I don't think it would be a fulfilling life. Every time I hit a home run, so to speak, and have an accomplishment, or maybe a score, maybe I have this great deal or this great opportunity. I like to share those opportunities with other people who can participate, especially when there's folks that are hungry and maybe younger men that I see a little bit of myself in them. And I say, man, I'm 48, so I see a guy who's 38, and I say, man, 38, I wish I had somebody say, hey, you should buy Bitcoin. Yeah. You should invest in this or that. I would have did it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And everything has its time, divine timing and purpose, and sometimes we're not ready for things. But I think the more you open up and the more you allow, and there's a lot of information out there, you have to be careful too what you allow to come into you. But if you're very strategic, like I think, let's take Instagram, right? Almost everybody has Instagram. almost everybody. There's very few people I meet and and I actually say to those people that don't have, I'm like, wow, good for you.
Yeah.
You know, you're off the grid. That's awesome. You're not, getting banged in the head 24 hours with this addictive technology. But, it can be a tool. And for me, in the last couple of years, it went from like certain things that I might have been looking at that might not have been so healthy to it's all success and wealth and corporate structures and investment opportunities and tax codes and shelters and strategies and, Patrick Pat-David and Grant Cardone and this one and that one. And it doesn't mean any one of them is perfect or like I follow what they do to a T, but those are the kind of pieces of information I like to filter through my brain now. And some of it sticks and some of it makes sense and some of it I execute and some of it I go, maybe not so much for me, that particular thing, but... And then I
use it down the line. That's
it's
happens,
planting seeds, but I'm putting the right things in my filter.
Yes.
And if you're just consuming entertainment, you're not growing. You're not growing. You can only look at, pretty girls and big booties and all that stuff so much. It's not doing anything for you. It's distracting you. It's taking you. And I see a lot of young men falling for these traps because it's in front of you 24/7. The internet is literally like a free-for-all of distraction and lust and perversion and all this craziness. And I think that if we're not careful, we can, even with our children, with TikTok and all this other stuff, like if you're not monitoring that, you don't know what they're putting in their filter.
You can't monitor
and they're
it now.
becoming desensitized to, this evil agenda that's overwhelming our society of certain perversions are normal and acceptable. And unless we have our finger on the pulse, you can't let your kid sit in a corner staring at a screen because that's who's raising your kid, not you. And I feel very fortunate that I didn't grow up with a screen in my face. And I rode my bike. Yeah. Go outside right now. Do you see any kids on their bike?
Yeah, I talk about it all the time.
When I was a kid, that's all you saw. We were all on our bikes everywhere.
Did I send you that video this morning of what the kids look like now when they go outside?
Yeah.
The one kid's just like flicking a plant. He's just like walking around kicking dirt. He's just like, he doesn't even know what to do. And the caption's like, some mother probably told him to go play outside. And they're just like, I don't know what to do.
We laugh, but think about that.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
It is scary.
That's the future. Mm-hmm. And if it's not technology based, they have like no common sense.
No interest, no common sense.
What happens? You get a flat tire. How do you fix it?
Just conversation alone. Dad? Yeah, just conversation alone. Being able to have
survival skills, drinking out of a water hose,
being able to talk to someone and know that if they're a good guy or a bad guy or the art of this conversation, that's gone. It's out the window. Our kids could be in front of a bad guy right now and they probably would have no idea because they just don't know. They've been
desensitized. Yeah. Even villains aren't a big deal anymore. Like you see villains on TV, it's just a show. But they're real villains walking around right now in the street, and it's like, it is. It's definitely the times have changed in my lifetime alone. I mean, I was born in 1976, and I feel like, as a child in the 80s and then as a teen in the 90s, I remember when microwaves came out. I remember when we all had beepers, and then I remember when cell phones came out. Like, just in my time alone, I've seen this trajectory. It's unbelievable. And, MP3 players and it went from tapes to CDs and yada, yada, yada. And now we're at the point where everything is technology and, it's so consuming.
You're going to be able to think of something soon and it's going to pop up. If I just think of it, boom, it's right there.
I mean, they're doing that with the predictive ads and all that. But the thing is this, instead of hemming and hawing about it, you kind of have to embrace it.
You have to adjust to it too. You have to adapt to it.
You have to use it to your advantage, but you also have to teach yourself. Like, we could say to our kids all you want, I used to ride my bike and look at you staring at the screen, but we're doing the same thing.
Right.
We're walking around going like this. Yeah. And I walk around with my adult friends that I see them scold their kids, and then they're doing the same thing. We're walking through the mall and they're literally walking like this and they're scrolling, and I'm like, oh, come on. And I don't think I'm any better. I'm sure I do it a lot too.
I think we try to justify it as adults. So is business. Well, I'm working. I do it. I do it all the time. My son will be like, Dad, why are you on your phone? I'm working. But like, he's right. It's like,
become like a habitual thing that we wake up and there's no more like looking at the newspaper or the news. Now it's just, this is my news. And then you got to remember the agendas that are being pushed are force-fed to us. So it's, there's a lot to think about, but I just think that it really does all start at home. And the way, if I could impress upon my peer group is to take some more time with your kids and just say, hey, let's all put our phones aside and like let's all interact and let's have a conversation. How was your day? And don't fine. No, it's not enough. Like let's get into it. You know, what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? Did somebody piss you off? You know, and those are the kind of conversations I have with my 12-year-old at home. I have a beautiful little stepdaughter that I've been in her life since she was 4, and she's the apple of my eye. I have a blast. She's my little best friend, and we're very close. And I like to bring her to school in the morning and have those morning conversations where, hey, have a great day. Remember, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're strong. She, yeah. And I'm like, you know, but I feel like I am giving her an edge in life because I take those moments to fill her with confidence, but also, you know, the little bit of witty sarcasm. I see it coming back out of her a little bit, but it's fun. It's fun because I feel like a lot of these kids are just blank slates, and they just all they know is what's on TikTok, you know, and she's paying attention. And
let's talk a little bit about your support system. So you're married to Leslie. She's beautiful.
We're not married. We're engaged.
You're engaged.
I get tortured for that. When you get married? And we're just enjoying life. And thank you for that.
But she seems like she helped stimulate your acting career at the age of 40.
Yeah.
And she's a huge support system. And it seems as though you're also an excellent role model to her children. So how do you incorporate everything that you've learned with your own children, with your blended family? How do you foresee your next 5 years going?
So it's wild because you never know what you know until you know it. I know that sounds silly, but think about that.
True.
And we're constantly learning, unless we're intentionally not, but we're constantly learning. So I feel like when I met her, I didn't want to be in a relationship. I was divorced. I was like, you know, I've been through war and back, right? And I was enjoying being by myself and being single for a little while and all that. And then God has a sense of humor. He goes, well, let me just give you this perfect little specimen of human that is going to change your life. And she's very smart, very savvy, comes from humble beginnings, understands the world from a completely different lens than me. We're opposites in almost every single way. And I feel like it's a gift to have someone like that in my life that challenges me. Yes. And, you know, I grew to a point in life where I didn't want to be challenged. I'm like, what I say goes type of thing. Like I got to this point in life, you know, on my own, and I kind of had that attitude. I have all these tattoos, and one of them says self-made, and it's big, bold letters. And I don't say that anymore. I used to be like, yeah, I'm self-made. I did all this. I got the big house and the cars and all this stuff, and I built all these businesses, yada, yada, yada. And I think now I've had a lot of humility and experiences that taught me that it's not me. I'm not so great. It's by God's grace and mercy that I'm even here. And the reason I know that, it's not just something I say because it sounds good and it sounds spiritual. I'm saying that because the things I've accomplished and the things I've experienced in the last couple of years, I could have never done on my own. It doesn't make sense. It scientifically doesn't add up. Right. And people might challenge me and say, oh no, you worked hard and you did this and you did that. I realize more than ever that the opportunities, the experiences, the guidance, the direction that I have has to be divine. Because, you know, if you look at where I started, and most of my friends are dead or in jail. Most of my peer group are gone. They're not here. Drugs, addictions, suicide, violence, prison, a lot of, you know, sad, disappointing events, you know, with my close circle of good friends and family members, my peer group, my age group. And I wasn't much different than them. I made a lot of the same mistakes. I did a lot of the same crazy things, and I lived a lot of the same experiences. And I started to say about 5 years ago, who the hell am I? Why am I still here? You know, and I think God started talking to me, and I started to actually connect or reconnect with my faith. And I started to realize it really is not me. I can't walk around and be like, I'm special, I'm different, I'm better. You know, almost had this air of arrogance about me where the whole self-made thing, like nobody could tell me nothing. I did this, all this, and this. And I think a lot of it, you know, has to do with Leslie. You know, she kind of gave me a different lens to look through, and she kind of, you know, dragged me to church and said, hey, and I was like, oh man, I went to church my whole childhood. Like, you know, I get it. I know all that stuff. And I kind of had that on a shelf mentally, like that's for sheep, that's for weak people. I kind of had this thought process, like even with prayer, like why am I gonna pray? Like I used to pray when things were really bad in my life and nothing happened. You know, God doesn't listen to me. And I kind of had this packaged up thought process of like, that's cool and that's good. And just to be on the safe side, I'll say like, you know, I believe in God and all that stuff. But I had it over here compartmentalized. And then I started to, you know, when I really got my butt kicked in life a little bit, like going through a messy divorce and stuff like that. And I feel like I was very alone for a while, but in a good way in hindsight, I got to really soul search and really think about like, you know, what did I want out of life? And you know, I have this clean slate now. I can go anywhere. My kids are grown. I'm on my own. And then I have this person come into my life that was like, hey, you know, you really should connect, or at least give it a shot to reconnect with God and like try to pray. And the funny thing I did is I printed out the Our Father prayer. I printed it out in big bold letters, and it was almost like a movie script because I was already in acting, right? And I started rehearsing my lines. I said, okay, let me see how this works. And I gave one to each person in my house. Let's say this before bed and before, you know, when we wake up. And when I started to realize that I learned in my acting classes was don't just read. I have this, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I have this pet peeve about actors that memorize lines. They're not doing the homework of the in-depth preparation of what is the story about? Why am I here? Why do I exist? Why am I even saying these lines? And some people do that in life. They take this surface approach of like memorizing lines.
True.
Even prayer. There's a lot of people like, I'm a devout, fill in the blank, whatever religion, and they go through the motions of what their family has always done and what they've been presented. And that's, I'm doing it because mom did it and dad did it and granddad and this, that, and the third. And hey, okay, if that works for you. For me, I think I'm a little more in depth. It has to really make sense to me to do something. And I think what happens is I started reading these lines of this prayer, and I started to, through a new lens now, because now I have all this acting training and like performance training, understanding what do these lines mean? And I took each line and I broke it down mentally so that I could not just say these words, but what am I actually saying? Why am I saying it? And I was actually blown away. I saw and I felt a whole different experience than ever before. And now I say these things that I've memorized with more intent and more conviction. And I started seeing things really accelerate in my life and really change. And I started to share what I'm sharing with you now with my peer group and with other people and other podcasts and this and that. And the reciprocal effect has been unbelievable. People from all over the world are hitting me up saying, I really needed to read that prayer you put on your story today. Like I was gonna kill myself.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? And then it's funny because I'm like, I didn't ask for this responsibility. This is a little heavy. But then I start realizing like, who am I to not like continue to do that? And then I started to realize, that's why I have these successes or accomplishments. That's why it doesn't make sense. Why would I go take acting classes at 40 years old and get in movies with A-list actors face to face? I have no business being there. I didn't put 20 years in the game. I didn't grow up being a theater geek and drama classes and all that stuff. I didn't do all that stuff. But I started to realize because of the journey that I've had, God has a sense of humor, and he says, what's a better way to get people's attention than to take this tattooed up, rough around the edges, unpolished guy. Let's throw him in an acting class. And everybody was probably like, who the hell is this guy? Because I did not fit the mold at all. There was no one in my class like me. No, never.
Really?
Remember, who signs up to be actors? Not jocks and street guys, tough guys. It's typically kids that do theater and they're quiet and they stay away from the big popular groups and all that. And now here I come, this lion, and everybody. But I feel like I ate it up and I fell in love with everything was perfectly timed. And now those accomplishments that I've had, I realize it raised my platform.
Yes.
Now people, there's more and more and more followers. Maybe they're looking because they're like, wow, he's tough and cool. And I love those, gangster movies that he does. And then there's a point in time where I realized, do I even want to keep doing this? Like, I'm doing so well in business. The acting stuff's cool and fun. It's therapeutic to a degree, but it's so time consuming and it doesn't pay out as much as if I put my efforts into the other business stuff that I do. And I started having a conversation with God. You really want me to do this? It looks like the top of the pyramid in this industry is all this evil stuff, and you got to sell your soul and that, and I ain't doing that. No.
True.
So anybody listening, that ain't happening. Don't come with the invite. So
Have you seen instances of that kind of stuff? Like, have you seen that since you've been in Hollywood and acting?
No, but there's an awareness, a general awareness of, when you get to a certain level, there's, you see all this stuff online. It's
definitely real. Yeah,
it's going to be real.
Yeah,
I mean,
the knowledge is there for us to.
And there's a part of me that started to say maybe a year ago, like, is that where I want to go?
Yeah.
Right.
Why am I doing this? And then I feel like that was a real question I asked God, and I feel like I had visions in my head, and that was a way of God kind of answering my questions. And I realized the platform that even to this point that I've grown is people actually really engaged in paying attention to me. And I think that, I'm really relatable because there's no BS, bro. This is just me. Like, I'm not memorizing lines, right? I'm just shooting from the hip. So I think if a guy like me can make it, so to speak, and have these accomplishments, maybe there's a relatability to another person that started like me, a blue-collar guy, a guy with a really crappy job that felt like used and abused and worked 90 hours a week and, didn't feel appreciated, doesn't feel appreciated, da-da-da-da-da. And that maybe I'm the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe they say, like, he was doing what I'm doing right now, and look what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And that's why I used to say, like, this doesn't make sense. How am I here?
How are you here? What was the first job that you took? What was I know that it was a Mark Wahlberg casting call.
Right.
And your future wife, fiance, said, you got to do this.
Yes.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah, so I was still living here in Rhode Island. I was winding it down with the business. I probably had like 3 locations left out of 12. I was running nightclubs on the weekend. I was, still hustling, double dipping, doing whatever I could to be, successful, so to speak. And I remember kept soul searching. I kept saying to her, man, there's got to be something else out there. I kind of pigeonholed myself. I built this business and it was great for the first 10 years. Now it's these last 5 years, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, I'm peopled out. I don't feel like chasing guys for rent money. I feel like I'm older now. I don't have it in me. I started this in my 20s. I was very passionate. I was full of life and energy. And now I'm just like, it was like life kicked my butt a little bit, right? So people on social media kept tagging me in this open casting call for Mark Wahlberg's. People were looking for New England tough guys, beards, tattoos, muscles, blue-collar guys, tough faces. It was like each bullet point was like, okay, I see why you guys are tagging me. And I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not standing in line somewhere like a dork and like, pick me. Like, it's not my style, bro. I'm way too cool for that, right? So it was literally like 60 different people kept peppering this thing or inboxing me and tagging me. I kept on doing it, like, and I was telling my girl, look at this, I'm not going. And she was like, wait a minute, you've literally been saying you wanted to try something different, completely out of the box, and you don't know what you want to do. Why don't you just go? And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I don't know anything about this stuff. She goes, I don't know. I feel intuitively you should go. There's something there for you. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. It's not, I have no business going to that. But when I started the barbershop, what did I have?
No business there. Yep.
No business being there, right? And I built 12 and I was like the leader in the industry. No partners, just me. And she started reminding me of that. And I'm like, oh. So now, and it's on the casting calls on a Saturday morning. What's that in the barbershop world? The busiest day of the week. So I had all the justifications. Yeah. It's pouring rain out. So I'm driving to Boston. I'm going to the casting call. And I got her on the phone. I'm complaining like an old lady with health problems. It's raining like a tsunami. I can't even see out the window.
Excuse not to do it.
This is stupid. I got people blowing my phone up. They want a haircut. Because I was starting to enjoy being a barber again, but I just didn't want to be in that business anymore. But just the interaction with people, I was starting to enjoy people. I was coming up with all these reasons why I shouldn't go. And I go, And I'm driving. She's like, just go. She never changed her tune. She just stayed, go, 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 go. You gotta go. You gotta go. I'm telling you, you gotta go. So I go. I pull up to the building on the GPS, and I see about 1,000 people in line, and it's pouring out.
Outside? They're waiting outside?
Outside. It's a really funny story, and I haven't told the story in a while. I'm pulling up in my brand new truck. I had a Dodge Ram at the time, brand new, all dialed up, all done up. And I'm literally I'm talking to God, right? I'm going, God, are you kidding me? It's 1,000 people. It's pouring out. My hair's all nice. Like, I gotta get out. I'm gonna look like a wet dog. Like, I'm gonna stand there. I don't stand in lines. Like, I don't even go to the buffet. There's a line. I don't want to stand in it. When I go to a restaurant, nightclub, if I don't go right in, like VIP, forget it. Like, I had this like air of arrogance about me. Like, I'm not standing in a line. I don't care if you're giving away $1 million bags. I'm not doing it. Like, you can have it. I'm not standing. It was just like an ego thing.
Yeah,
it was all about my ego at the time. And then so as I'm pulling up to the building, it's like at the end of a street, and I see all the people in line, and I see this big fancy Rolls Royce, and I'm like, I bet that's probably Wahlberg and his people. It's all tinted out, and they're sitting there just looking at the people, like cherry picking, right? I'm like, that's kind of cool, but it's pouring out. I'm not standing in line like a goof. And then I look, and there's no parking. I'm like, oh my God, drive 6 blocks and walk. I'm gonna be like again with a wet mop. So as I am approaching the building, and I see there's no parking. I see I'm taking this all in. I'm disgusted. Like, I should have never drove this hour in this weather. I should have, I'm being so negative. And I said, God, you want me here? Show me. I'll give it one chance. How arrogant am I? I'm telling God, I'll give you a chance.
Yeah.
So embarrassed. I go around. I said, I'm gonna go around the block once. I go around. I come back. The very first car in the front, across the street from the building, like on the corner spot, there was a truck like mine, pulled out and drove away. I went, shoot. All right. At least I'm right here in the front row. Yeah. This is my style. And I go, what about the rain? Boom, rain stops. Can't make this up. The rain stops. The clouds go away. The sun beeps out. And I'm going, I swear to God, the common theme in my life is God has a sense of humor. I can almost see him up there like,
go in.
Like, you ask, you shall receive, right? So I look at the line, I go, what about the line? And I hear this voice just go, I had a manila envelope, I had headshots in it, which was a whole nother ordeal. I never had pictures taken before in my life. They're like, smile, and it was the worst experience for me ever at that moment. Now I'm all about it. Yeah, let's take a picture. Before I was like, oh, no pictures, So now I get out, I see all the guys in line, I go up to the line, I can only imagine what they think. I probably came over with this mean mug on, and I go, oh, you guys in line to go inside? And the guys, they turn around, they all look at me, they go, no, we already went inside. We're in line to get interviewed by the news reporter over here. And I didn't even see that. They were like, hey, how do you feel about the opportunity to work with Mark Wahlberg? It was one of those things, and I was like, so then they go, no, go inside. So there's no line. I literally have goosebumps talking about this. I go by everybody. I go up the stairs, and this friendly face, young, probably intern girl. Hi, you here for the casting call? I'm like, yeah. She goes, oh, go right in. There was nobody in my way. It was weird. It was like the red carpet, right? So I go down this hallway. I take a left, and I walk in this door, and I see all these people with a huge stack of envelopes of headshots. And immediately, for a split second, I go, oh, this is like a gimmick. Like, they're doing this for like a press, which I'm sure they did to some degree, but I'm like, I'm like a sheep now, because I hate even being considered like a sheep or a follower or like, but for that split second, that little bit of doubt crept in. I went, when I saw, because I feel like I'm just going to go like this, because I saw them going, all right, have a nice day. Like, people going in, putting their thing and walking out. And I'm like, oh no, it's one of those, it's like, this is dumb, right? It's no sooner did I have that half a thought, this little old lady comes out. She goes, who the fuck are you? This little tiny lady. I go, me? I'm looking around. I'm like, did I do something wrong? Like, am I in the wrong room? All these thoughts. She goes, what's your name? I said, Bruce Soscia. She goes, you got a nickname, Bruce? And I said, yeah, my friends call me Busta. Well, Busta. She gets me by my shirt. She pulls me. She goes, you don't wait in lines. You want to be a movie star? And I go, I guess so. She takes me in this other room, and there's all paparazzi and, like, photographers and all that. Look at this guy. Look at this fucking guy. she's talking like that, right? And I feel at home. Like, I'm like, is she from my neighborhood? Like, what's going on? And they all take their attention to me. She get his picture, take his picture. I'm Angela Perry. I own Boston Casting. We're the biggest casting agency on the East Coast. And she's like flexing on me, right? She goes, what a hell of a look this kid's got. Get over there, stand there. And there was a couple other guys, right? One was like a MS-13 looking gangbanger. This one's got like tattoos on his face. And she goes like, she gets us all in a group and she goes, gangbanger, boy trash, and she gets to me. She goes, mob boss, take that picture. And I was just like, you could probably see my heart going like that. I had a polo shirt and the horse was dancing, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so weird. Like, I don't know what this means, but it feels kind of good, right? So maybe this is a good step in the right direction. She goes, can you do an audition? I go, yeah. No idea what that means. We're going to call you this week. You going to answer the phone? Oh, yeah, I'll answer the phone. So I hang around a little bit. She goes, all right. And I go outside. I cried. I went in my truck. I cried. I said, I don't know what the hell's happening, but this is just weird. It's surreal. It's so out of my comfort zone. But I was just like, all right, let me roll with it. I called my girl. I told her, I said, they picked me. I don't know what it means. Oh, my God, I knew it. She's yelling. I said, I don't know what it means or where this is going, but let's roll with it.
Yeah.
They send me auditions. It's like one word. And I'm like.
What, the line in the movie?
Yeah, like.
Yeah.
And I got to drive, this is pre-COVID, I got to drive an hour to go stand in a line, to go in the room to say the line. And I'm like, what was that word again? Like, and I learned so much from those early experiences to get out of my own head because something so simple can be so hard. And you would never think that. I'm the man of ultimate confidence, right? And I'm like, what was that one word? Like, I'm looking at all the cameras, the lights, all that. But it took me a little bit, but I knew right away I need acting class. If I'm going to pursue this, I need real, like, grounding and structure and, like, tutorials, education or whatever. So I found myself in acting classes right away. And
locally?
In Boston. I was same building. I would drive up there an hour each way. I never told anybody. I was driving an hour each way, 3-hour class. Con here all day, and then 2-3 nights a week. Sometimes I'd go up. Never said anything. In the first maybe few weeks, I was in the back of the class like this. Look at these nerds. What am I doing in here? And I had this. Still, I couldn't.
Arrogance,
I couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
And then one day, something that teacher said. She was so kind and so sweet, and she was so giving. Rachel Baylett, Lee Strasberg Film Institute in L.A. She grew up in Boston, but she had been in L.A. for years and years and years, and as an actress, but also as a professor at the Lee Strasberg Film Institute. And to give back to her home community, she would come and do these seminars. And somehow, divinely, I got led to her, and her style just really resonated with me. It's method acting, and I'm very grateful forever, and I keep in touch with her all the time. I studied with her for a few years, and ultimately it went from this big, tough guy that didn't fit in the back of the class to front of the class. Can I go next? I'll be your scene partner.
That's incredible.
And I'd go in the hallway, we'd huddle, and we'd have like a scene. We should do it like this. And when I say that, and then we'll walk over there. And I fell in love with the creative process. I fell in love with what I call the huddle. Before you do a scene, like working it out and coming up with a strategy, a plan to really give a brilliant performance. And I just really can't say enough. Even to this day, like, I'm so passionate about it. I love it. Do I want to do it every day? No, I don't. Because it's work. It's a lot. When you go and do a movie or a TV show, you're on set 15 hours, 16 hours. Like, what am I doing? This is just, and a lot of it's waiting for your turn, so to speak, but you got to be ready. And then it's like go time.
Be ready to go.
And I've literally done over 50-something sets now, different projects.
Yeah.
The ones we talk about are like the highlights, the more significant ones, but I've been in a lot of movies and TV shows. When I first started, I did like featured background roles. So you don't have speaking lines, but maybe your face is next to the main character.
Sitting next to the main character, kind of giving a presence.
That taught me set etiquette, like how to be on set, and I would just study, paying attention. A lot of, they put out a lot of good food on those. You can't get in that trap either.
Was that the craft table? Is that the real deal?
Oh my God. The bigger the budget, the more food, I swear.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, they just loaded on. But I started to realize, like, I don't want to do this, because it was like the low man in the totem pole. You kind of get treated like crap if you show up and you don't have speaking lines, if you're not a principal role. And so way back when I first started, I did a couple of those, and it was so cool to be on set with these big movie cameras and all these, famous people and all that. But I realized like I'd rather be watching through the window because it was, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like you're a second-class citizen if you've chosen to commit to that level of participation. So I just kept studying and studying and studying. The whole time I was auditioning for speaking lines for different projects, and ultimately it just started to happen. The funny thing is, the first speaking lines I had were in New York, not in Boston. And I worked with Adrian Brody, a movie Clean, IFC movie. And you don't know what the movie's about really. A lot of times when you have a small role, you just know what your scene is about.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
No, because they don't want it to leak. So they keep it as tight as possible. So they say, here's your page, so to speak. And I remember I did that. It was, that in itself was wild. I drove through a blizzard in upstate New York to get on set by 6 a.m. And I thought I was cool. I rented a Dodge Charger and I'm driving from Providence to New York. I'm thinking like New York City and not realizing I'm going way up in New York.
Buffalo.
Like Utica, New York. So I'm driving and it starts snowing and I got to be on set at 6 in the morning. The GPS takes me down some farm road and a whole nother story for a campfire day. But it's a lot of wild experiences along the way. I've filmed all over the country at this point in different markets, and that in itself has been a hell of an opportunity.
Just doing that, yeah.
I did a movie that it hasn't been released yet, and it's going to be a really good one. You guys will enjoy it. It's called Winterset, and we filmed it in Winterset, Iowa. It's the birthplace of John Wayne. Really, really cool movie. But the reason I bring it up is, when the hell would I be in Iowa, right? I have no reason.
No reason to go there. Yeah.
No business being in Iowa, and I'm in Iowa about, I think it was a year and a half ago, and it's the middle of the winter, and it's like 2 degrees, and all those corn stalks you see on TV, they're all down. So it's just land. You're in the middle of nowhere. Wherever you are, you're still in the middle of nowhere, and
that's exciting though, man. Doing
wild.
It's like a road trip, doing it, and you're going there for a purpose.
Wild.
You're going there to this new experience that you've never done before. That's crazy, man. So what was your first speaking role movie that you were like, man, this is fun?
The Adrian Brody one. It was the first time I was speaking on film, and it was Adrian Brody. I mean, it was cool because even something as simple as this, it's a small clip of that overall scene, but I said, what the fuck you looking at? And he comes around the corner, he sees us jumping these guys, and I said, you got a motherfucking eye problem? And I gave him that Providence grill.
So when you work with an actor like Adrian Brody, do you guys develop a relationship that goes beyond the movie?
Sometimes. It's like anything else in life. Sometimes. It all depends on so many variables, like what's happening in that day, like on the day. Is there a whole bunch of scenes being cut that day where it's just, business, where it's moving, a lot of moving? The cool thing about that one that sticks out of my mind is the director said to me, to Adrian Brody, after the first take, like they wanted a tough guy with a tough face to be intimidating. What the fuck you looking at? And be able to showcase that, where Adrian Brody's like, oh fuck, I came down the wrong alley, right? Yeah. The way I auditioned for that, I sent in it's funny because my girl, it was my first audition for New York, and I booked it, right? So it said the directions say these lines, whatever. So at that time I have a studio now like this, but I didn't have a studio or anything like that. I went to Silver Lake. I stood on the corner with my bubble coat and my hood on, and I said the lines. She's in the passenger seat hanging out with her iPhone.
No,
and I was like, the fuck you looking at? And I gave that what I would say, right? And we sent it in. Probably the worst resolution. It was dark out. It was nighttime. Worst camera quality, And so this is what I find out. I go there, I check in, I have coffee. I'm like, oh shit, look, there's Adrian Brody. And the director comes out, hey man, how you doing? He's really cool. Paul Solette, which I think he's actually originally a New Englander. We do the first take, and he jumps off the director chair. He comes over, and I think he's gonna redirect me or scold me, right? Because I'm this is my first time doing this, right? But I just did what I knew. And he was like, oh my God. He was so excited. He grabs Adrian Brody, who was super cool, and he's like, I found this fucking kid, bro. He's like, look at him. He's mad scary.
What do you feel when that happens? What is your feeling inside? It must be just be
It's changed. It's evolved, the feeling. But in the beginning, I remember I would bring so much of that like Providence, like grit with me, and it worked, I guess. But like now, I think I'm way more calmer in those moments. But when I first was filming,
cool, yeah.
I'd be like, I couldn't play it cool. I'm like, yo, you want a tough guy? I'm gonna give you the fucking toughest stuff. You know what I mean? And I would show them, but it really translated on film because I'm looking at Adrian Brody like, I will kill you, motherfucker. Like, and I meant it, and the camera saw it. So like, the director jumps off his chair and he's saying to Adrian, he's got his arm around me, look at this fucking kid. He's like, he's mad scary. Yo, I want you in all my movies, he's saying. And I'm like, yeah. Still had the ego, right? But inside I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
but on the outside, I'm like, fucking smash all these guys. You know what I mean? And Adrian Brody was like unimpressed in terms of like, yeah, you know, like I'm the... Why aren't you paying attention to me? I kind of got that a little bit. Really? And I was like, wow. And it's funny because you pick, you know, everybody's interactions with people, different moments, timing. So I give people a lot of grace. And he wasn't like bad or mean. I can't say anything negative about it, but I felt in that moment like this guy's tooting my horn to this guy. And this guy's like, yeah, like whatever. Like,
is there any roles that you want to do that kind of get you out of that tough guy persona? Like, do you want to do a different role?
I get asked that all the time. And I have. This year, I did a bunch of movies back to back that showcase a different side of, but another part of me, another version of me. I played a college football coach.
Yeah.
And I tapped back into Pop Warner days, coaching my kids. And there's this one chubby comedian who's the main character, and he like goes back to community college and picks up the pieces where he left off, where he quit high school football because, you know, somebody that he was hanging around was negative, and he was lazy, and he became lazy and complacent in life. It's just his overall feel-good story. And he goes back to community college. I'm the coach, and he signs up, and he's just this big fat whale of a player, and he's all slob. And I'm like, I gotta deal with this kid.
Yeah.
And the guy's great. Like in real life, he's actually a stand-up comedian. Josh Novi, a really funny guy. And, you know, my whole thing, you know, I would blow my whistle and yell at him and stuff, but like, I almost took like a militant, I made a choice to play my character like an ex-military guy who's structured and militant, is a great coach and no nonsense, but now I'm coaching community college football. So you could see there's some ironies in there, and there could be some humor, and especially that I think that'll be a fun one to watch. It's called 4th and 44. That should come out probably next year.
I could see you doing like a comedy mob scene, like spin-off, like a what's that movie called? Kind of like a spin-off comedy.
I've done some variations of that, and another one that I did this year that's a different version of me. I played a pastor of a church with a family.
Shit. No
in
way.
my opening scenes, I'm in the suit, I'm in the pulpit, I'm literally preaching to the congregation, and I'm reading Bible scriptures. And then a lot of my scenes are like family dinners and stuff, and I have 2 daughters and a wife, and I'm like, and there's like this underlying dilemma in the community, and it's kind of like there's like a school shooter, and it's more of the emphasis is just on like family, and the name of that movie is God Will Listen, and it's nice independent film, faith-based film, but I played a pastor. I covered up all the tats and was more like a little more polished, and I pulled that out of the bag of tricks. So yeah, I enjoy playing the alpha male stuff. It's first nature. I flip a switch, and it's not a stretch. You know, what I really want to do, and I haven't got to do it yet, is some kind of like tactical, like
military.
Yeah,
I can see
that would be
that was my
fun.
second thing.
like
I could
Chris Pratt, like some of those movies where like
Navy SEAL
jumping out of helicopters and they got the machine
For
gun and all
sure.
that. And I've started studying some tactical training, and I've gone on the range with the Israeli tactical forces. They got a group down in my Boynton Beach, Florida.
They're badass.
Oh yeah,
the
super.
Israelis.
And I'm having fun, man. It's like stuff like that. I'm learning, and I use that to perform. And even when I was here in Providence, one of my distant cousins, Michael Pagliata, he was teaching me Balinta walk, Filipino stick fighting, and they use that in like Game of Thrones, where you take like a bamboo stick and you do what's called a water dance, and it's like a choreographed fighting flow. And I'd love to get back to that, but stuff like that, like I mean, but really, most of the time with acting, you're gonna get picked or cast for what you fit the most.
Yeah,
you know,
yes.
look. If it looks, feels, and sounds like.
What about the
you know,
Sopranos movie? Was that around the time where you started acting? Because that was what, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
No, it got filmed quite a while ago, but it's and that's the thing. Like when you film stuff, it takes 2-3 years before you see it.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
probably
It's
weren't
wild.
even in the game when that came out.
Even
'Cause they
I was
definitely would've gave
involved
you a call.
loosely. Like I know all those. Like I've worked with all the Sopranos guys. They're all on my phone on speed dial. I've done a lot of events with here in Providence with my friend Michael, Skyline and stuff. We did a lot of Sopranos dinner shows and events and Sopranos Con in New Jersey. I was a part of that. And so a lot of those guys in that world, even the TV show I'm on now, Gravesend series, I was on almost all the episodes of season 2. We're filming season 3 right now. And it's like Chaz Palminteri and Armand Asante, William Forsythe, Martin Cole from Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, Andrew Dice Clay, Fran Drescher, the nanny. Like there's so many 80s icons, and the list goes on in the TV show that I'm in. But they're all on speed dial, and it's surreal. Like a lot of these people I watched growing up, and now I'm like at events, hanging out and high-fiving, rubbing shoulders, taking pictures, and we have like warm relationships, like go to dinner together and stuff. And it's just people.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, for
and
sure.
what happens a lot of times is some of these folks, they just happen to do one gig that really took off. And a lot of the times, it's the gig that they had no idea was going to be the
It's like
one.
music too, yeah, same
And
thing.
they're like, oh my God, the world really loves this. And it just hit the right note at the right time.
Right.
And now you're a household name, and now you're in a bunch of stuff after that. And it, you know, for me, I don't know, I don't really, I can't say I don't care about that part. I think that's intriguing. But I really do enjoy the simpleness of the craft. You know, I have a partner in Los Angeles, Michael Blevins. We've done that Winterset movie I alluded to earlier, and we just shot a pilot. I financed it. I executive produced a pilot called Cougar, and it's almost like a Yellowstone-ish, like a middle of America, like modern country cowboy type crime drama.
Yeah.
And I like that stuff. I like suspense.
me
I like
too.
crime dramas, like with a little humor. Like with like little one-liners in there, I love that stuff. I think, and that's
Tulsa
what
King's like that.
I
love
enjoy it.
It's
That's
funny.
to me, that's like a light comedy, like a light. It's a crime show, but it's not. It's the emphasis isn't on like the blood
Let
and
me
guts
kill
and
you.
killing.
Yeah.
It's more about the one-liners. I love I live on one-liners.
When
And
you
you have a movie out right now with Liam Neeson, right?
Yeah. So
Ash, can we pull that trailer up?
in theaters right now, yeah, I'm in the trailer too.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm in theaters right now. 2 years ago in Boston, I shot a movie with Liam Neeson. It's called Absolution. I think at this point now, it's been out for 2 weeks in theaters, and you can watch it still in theaters, but I think at this point you can also get it streaming. I'm pretty sure some of my friends hit me up and said they watched it on Apple TV and maybe some other streamers, but I went to the theater and saw it.
Did
I
you?
saw that.
That's
I saw that.
so
Let's play the whole trailer. All right, let's take a quick commercial break to bring you our sponsor, Burns Roofing. I've been personal friends with Eric for over 20 years. He's an incredible stand-up businessman. And if you ever need anything regarding roofing in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, give them a call. They do honest, hard work, and he is my go-to whenever I need anything in roofing needs. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Pro Landscaping, Rhode Island's trusted partner in creating beautiful, functional outdoor spaces. From detailed lawn care to full-scale landscape design and hardscape installations, they bring expertise and a commitment to excellence to every project. If you're looking to elevate your property with skilled, reliable professionals, Pro Landscaping is here to make it happen.
I've been having these headaches.
Have you sustained concussions over the course of your life?
You could say that. Just tell me what I need to get better.
There is no treatment. Do you have anyone?
I thought I told you not to come.
Just wanted to see you.
This is your grandfather. Mom said you're in prison. What for?
Not walking away.
Hey, you killed him!
He ain't dead. He's just stupid.
There he is.
I have some work for you.
Got some product coming in. Deliver it when the time comes.
I want to know what's back there.
No, you don't. Jobs like this, you gotta learn not to look. Can we talk? I've done so much stupid stuff in my life, I can't even tell you. Don't be like me.
Are you still doing stupid stuff?
Don't take me to church.
I worry about you a little bit.
I wanna be buried.
You can't change the world. World don't want to be changed.
I don't know why I'm here, but let me help you. You're gonna hear some bad things about me.
You're crazy.
Can't you just walk away? The only way for me to do something right is by doing something bad.
Is that the highest budget movie you've done?
I'm not sure because I honestly didn't look up to see what the budget was on that one versus maybe Doggone with Rob Lowe. That's probably a pretty hefty budget, I'm assuming. But I would imagine those two are probably the biggest budget. I did a Disney movie that probably had a hefty budget, but believe it or not, my scenes got cut out of it.
Really?
Yeah, which is status quo. It actually happens more often than people realize. My scene was the ending scene for the Disney movie Godmothered.
Oh.
It's like a modern day Cinderella, came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I made a mistake of telling everybody I knew, make sure you get Disney Plus and tune in on Friday. My movie's coming out. And then I went to my barbershop. I was still up here at the time. And I fast forwarded to the end because I knew I was at the end. And the whole room was full of customers and friends and staff. And I was like, oh no, did I miss it? And I kept going back. And then my agent called me. He was like, oh man, sorry to hear you didn't make the cut. And I was like, fuck. And so
man.
I was embarrassed. I had to shut my phone off for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Everybody and their mother's like, I got popcorn and the whole family in the living room, but we didn't see your pot. Did we miss it? And I was like, I had to have the same conversation over and over. I was like, like happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And I guess I learned the hard way.
Yeah. My sisters, they're still in California, and 2 out of the 3 sisters have their SAG credits. So
nice.
they do a lot. They're professional skateboarders.
Oh, nice.
But then they crossed over to doing like commercials for skateboarding. They did a commercial for the Olympics. And yeah, so it's
really
they
cool.
love it too. But they haven't dived in like you and where they're acting for movies like that.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's the thing. Like, there's so many different branches of performance, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I did 1, maybe 2 TV commercials.
Yeah.
Commercials is huge money, and it's a great business. For me, it's like...
Is that because of the residual money?
I just think because it's more budget-based. It's a predetermined budget, which movies are too, but movies rely on the back end of, like, viewership. That's how they make their real money. But like a commercial is usually like a big brand, and they're like, they allocate a certain amount of funds, and then the way commercial contracts are written is where you every time, like say a commercial. I was on the Connecticut State Lottery commercial, and it's funny because I'm a Rhode Island guy.
Were you gambling or something?
Filmed in Massachusetts, but it was the Connecticut State Lottery, so it was really strange. But I was actually like a construction guy walking up to a taco truck, having a conversation with another guy. Basically, he's saying like, I got it, like paying the bill. And I'm like, oh, thanks, man. It was a simple part of a montage of like a bunch of different clips in one commercial. What happens is they'll say like, all right, we're going to run this commercial for 8 to 13 weeks. I think it's somewhere in there regionally. And if we renew it, we pay you again. So say I made a few $1,000 for that day. And then they renewed it 2-3 more times. Like every time it came due for renewal, they're like, this commercial's getting a lot of traction. They'll renew it, and then I get another check.
Paid the same amount?
Yeah, so commercials,
they paid that much? A few grand for a commercial?
Oh, yeah,
that was small, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
How much did she make off of that one?
Marissa and Lydia, they get like, sometimes they get $15,000 for a
What?
commercial.
And that's small.
Yeah, and
it
that's
all depends on the audience. If you get in a national commercial, 60,000 plus residuals.
Do you have an agent?
Yeah.
So your agent just hits you up with deals like once What is it? Every day he'll call you up and say, we got this, we got that?
Every day, no. It's funny because right now it's been slow, believe it or not. And I get a lot of my own work. I have representation in Boston, my first agent, which I was able to keep him. I'm very loyal, right? So he took an interest in me before I had a resume. He just said, hey, I think you're gonna go somewhere and I believe in you and I think I can get you work. So he's, we put a deal together way back when I started. And again, I had no business being there, right? I didn't have a resume. I was just starting, and I met him, and it just turned into something better. And then I've had a bunch of agents. Like there was a point when I had 7 agents at once in all different markets. And, in hindsight, I probably should have kept it like that. But I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I think the bigger you go, you have bigger opportunities. So I accepted a exclusive contract with a Los Angeles-based agency, and I hate to say it, but it hasn't been as fruitful as I thought.
When you have an agent, are they making money on the back end, or do you have to pay them to be your agent?
Because I'm a SAG union member, there's compliance rules, so they're only allowed to take 10% of what you make.
Okay.
So for the job they get you, or the opportunity they present you.
So when you get paid, they get paid.
Yes. Yeah. So for them, it's actually a tough gig because think about it. They can give me 100 auditions and I don't book any.
It's commission, basically. It's a basically commission gig.
So a lot of these agents, what they do is they take on as many people on their roster, and then you have to decide, do I want to be in a roster that has 1,200 people?
Yeah.
Maybe I sit in the pile, or maybe you go, it's all relative. I mean, or do I want this big famous agent where they have Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and then I'm in the pile? Why would they be pushing me? Like, they're going to go for the moneymakers, right? Because it's commission-based. So, and then you take like a boutique, like a super small agent or manager, and they might be like, I think I can. Like they have the relationships where they can get you in the door, and your success is way more important to them because they're more hungry, right? They're more ambitious, and they're not as big of an entity. So I've kind of done all the different angles, and because I'm so busy in business, I've almost been content with not like being pounded with opportunities. And before it was like, I haven't got an audition all week, and I'd get like 7, and I thought that was normal. Come to find out, it was super abnormal. Most of the actors I talk to, they don't get even one for months, one opportunity to try to audition, and then you get picked or you don't. Most likely you don't, because you might do 100 to get one booking.
I think you're gonna I think you're gonna land a big role soon, and I think I can see it being a bad guy, and like you're a really good villain. You're really good looking,
and it's fun.
Yeah, and no, for sure.
It's
gonna happen, man. You keep plugging, and what you're doing right now, I think it's perfect. You're using that ability, that world to be known, to meet these people, like, the people that you're able to do business with, and they're taking a liking to you because you're a hustler. You're trying to get into this, into that, and you're using it as a tool, and you're also really having success in business.
Sure.
So I think what you're doing right now is perfect.
And thank you. It kind of has been an integration of, there was a while where I was keeping everything separate. And even up to recently, everybody just sees me as an actor. I don't advertise that I do business. People don't even know that I do real estate transactions, that I've bought and sold like significant commercial real estate and off-market deals and creative finance deals and pre-foreclosures. And I've kind of dove in headfirst into that world in the last couple of years. And it's really about educating yourself and about putting yourself around people who have done it and have a ton of experience and are willing to share their knowledge with you. And I've been very blessed to spend quality time with people that have done way more than me. And that's when we go back to the earlier conversation, like the people you spend your time with is really important. And time is our most valuable asset. So if, for me, a lot of times, one of the most important things for me was to move and to kind of take myself out of my comfort zone. In my hometown, very comfortable. I have a lot of family and friends and acquaintances and the restaurant owners, and like everything that I do here when I move around, it's very padded, right? It's like the kid that, has the parents that pay for everything, right? So I've kind of become that kid here when I'm home, and it's beautiful. It's a great sentiment. There's a lot of love here for me, a lot of support. But for me to grow, I had to kind of go to another place and give myself the opportunity to focus. And when I go places, I'm not getting recognized because nobody cares who I am when I'm in South Florida, right? And to me, that's a gift. It's a beautiful opportunity to grow because now I can actually go sit in a restaurant, have dinner, have a quiet conversation, and there's not some, drunk person landing on me. Hey, remember, in second grade we did this, and I love those interactions. But to a degree, it becomes
to a degree.
Maybe we should have went somewhere quieter or off the grid. So now I've put myself off the grid. I have no excuse now. So that's the way I look at it. And I spend time with business guys that have done way more than me, guys that are doing way more than me, and I'm no longer an observer at the table. Now I'm a participant, and I'm participating in significant opportunities.
That meeting the other day, you could tell that you were using a lot of the things that you learned in that meeting. You were telling Chris certain things, like what makes it different. Where do you see this going? I could see, and I didn't know you at the time, but I could see that you were using a lot of the tools that you have learned throughout the years.
Sure. And it goes back to earlier, like really just understanding people, understanding projects, like what makes you tick, what makes this project, what makes it what you think it is. Because a lot of people will go, oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay, that sounds good, but why? Why is it the greatest thing? Because it might not be. You might be just so excited because it's new to you. But maybe I've seen this 80 different ways and it hasn't worked. So it's not to be too much of a realist that comes off negative, but it's just to be, there's always a way to help people. And sometimes helping people means not what they want. Sometimes they want you to be the saving grace that's going to bring them to the promised land. And sometimes the answer might be, okay, cash in your chips now because you're wasting time and money. You got to go a different direction. This might not be the end all be all for you. Maybe you take that energy you have for this and that passion you have for this project, put it into something else, and you might take off like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because I've experienced it. Sometimes what you think is this is it, you might be jamming a square peg in a round hole, and you can only do that so much because it's not meant to fit. And that really goes back to divine timing and opportunity. Sometimes God doesn't want you to do that.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bitcoin a little bit.
Sure.
When did you get involved in Bitcoin? I've been in Bitcoin since 2016. It's been a roller coaster. I started learning about NFTs, the tokenization, and being able to take something like this right here and break it down 10 different ways, and each one of us has a piece of it. I've always thought of a concept of that. And when I was younger, I used to think about when I used to talk about real estate, and when I was a loan officer, that was one of my things, is like, how come multiple people can't own a property? If that property is worth $200,000 and all three of us have a piece in that property, when the value of that house goes up, our pockets go up, our initial investment goes up. And that's exactly what they're starting to do with the tokenization and NFTs. Explain how you got into that world and what you're doing with it now.
Sure. So a lot of folks around me, and when I say 99.9% of the population is afraid of what they do not know, that's what fear is. If fear is a lack of education, right? So when I talk to these accomplished older gentlemen, typically, who have made millions of dollars in different spaces, and I say, man, I got involved in crypto mining, and it's unbelievable. The returns are crazy. It's actually better than buying crypto stock, is mining it, right? And I'm very passionate about it. It's something I've recently come across. Most of these older guys, they immediately go, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about it. What's it based on? There's no asset. And they literally close their eyes and they go, and they put up this big stop sign. And I smile, and I take a deep breath, and I go, that right there, that's cool. I'm very impressed by the things you've accomplished in life. But when did you start doing that? If there's something you don't know about, you just go, and you yell and scream and block it out? Or why not take a moment and try to understand the concept? Try to understand, why are people making billions of dollars in this new space? Do you have a flat screen in your house? Yeah, of course I do. I got 100-inch and I got that. I go, okay. But do you remember when it didn't look like that? When that flat screen used to be the big thing on the floor? it was a big box on the floor. That was a big screen TV, right? I had one. We all did. And yeah. Well, why did you buy the one you have now? Oh, because it's better. It takes up less space. And they'll sell me a flat screen essentially, right? And I said, well, it's the same idea. It's a new concept that you're not familiar with, that you had to take the time to absorb the information to validate the purchase and justify getting involved with this new technology. It's the same exact concept. It's you. The only reason why you're shying away is you don't understand it, you don't know it, but that shouldn't stop you from at least giving yourself the opportunity to explore or educate yourself, right? So without beating a dead horse, I think what's happening, even to me when I first started, I did the same thing. I don't understand crypto. I don't understand mining. I don't understand NFTs. It makes my brain hurt. And so what I did is I did like a slow roll. I was involved in all these different things, but that thing, the crypto, the mining, the NFTs, the tokenization, that kind of stuff has been around me for a few years. Like significant people in those industries have always been around me, and I've heard the talks and the lingo, and I try to absorb, I try to ask questions, and it was almost like algebra and calculus when you're a kid. You're like, oh my God, this is so intimidating. And I finally got to a point where just literally recently, within the last couple months, I met some people that venture capitalists like myself that are involved. One guy is involved in mining, and 9 months ago, he brought it to me and he says, I think you're missing out. You know, you should invest in my company. You should get some mining equipment, yada, yada, yada. And I was, and I called other people I knew that might know something about it. And they were all like, oh, it's a scam. It's this, it's that. Again, anything people don't know, they immediately assume the worst. But it's really, it doesn't mean that it's bad or it's not good. It just means you need to understand it. You need to get educated. So, and I'm sure you would agree. It sounds like you've spent some time learning about it. So for me, I found that as of recent, the tokenization of assets is where the planet is going, right? Which it's all based on blockchain. And I don't think I'm an expert in the terms of being able to explain the whole scenario, but I think my level of understanding is that everything is moving in a certain direction. And less than 5% of the population has stock in crypto, first of all.
So it's not too late.
It's not too late, but it's also, it's at the point where we've already seen this. It's been around for a little while now, over 10 years, right?
And 2008.
Yeah, so now people are still kind of looking through the window at what's happening, and most of the folks that have had success in the crypto space had no business being there. They blind faith, they bought in because it sounded good, and they didn't have an education. Most of the educated guys didn't do it because it's so many red flags because nobody knew enough about it. So all these guys that had blind faith went off and made millions and billions of dollars, and a lot of them still are holding those assets, and it's just growing and growing. And I'm not a proponent to say, just go follow the leader and have blind faith. But what my biggest thing is, educate yourself, right? And I don't have a huge portfolio of crypto. I don't, because I got in and got out, I got shaky legs. Oh, this thing is peaking. Let me pull it out. I was kind of like almost the equivalent of like day trading.
Yeah, which is dangerous.
It is and it isn't, because I didn't go out negative. But overall, when you think about it, if I had what I started with.
I was going to say, you kind of did, because if you would have kept it in there.
But I'm content. You know, my thing now is, my latest thing is, I invested in mining equipment. So the mining machines are an appreciating asset themselves. They're mining crypto to my wallet. I've shared this opportunity with some of my friends. It's very recent. I haven't really gone out on a limb and told everybody about it yet, but I've told a handful of people, like, hey, I got involved in this because I really believe in it. I see what these guys are doing, and it's pretty amazing. We're mining altcoin and Dogecoin, and it's, from what I understand, it's a better bang for your buck. And then once you have it in your wallet, if you want to transfer it to Bitcoin or purchase a different crypto, you can. It's a easier process to do it that way. Convert it. So if you buy Bitcoin, it costs you more than if you mine coins and then convert it to Bitcoin. So those are kind of some of the punch points that I'm working on right now. And I'm helping some of my investor friends get educated, bringing them to the table with some of my experts, friends that really understand the game, and they're heavily invested and deep in, and they're sharing the information, because you know, their whole thing is they've been in business for a few years and their trajectory is unbelievable. Like, and they're personally taking everything they have and putting it back in because they're like, there's no other ROI like this on the planet. No matter what the market value does, it's like if you had a farm and you're farming carrots. Yeah, the value of carrots is one issue, right? The value of carrots is going up and down. But how many carrots can I get every day? Right. So you're getting as many carrots as you can and hoping that you can sell it as high as you can at some point. But really, I think people are starting to realize with crypto, just like any stock that's volatile that has a significant gain, it's a long play. Why would you sell your carrots? If you can stockpile the carrots and watch the overall value go up, I'm not even going to the market and buying the carrots. I'm farming them myself. Yeah. So I personally have made a choice to mine. And I think it's a great idea. And if anybody wants to get involved with mining, they can reach out to me because I'm very passionate about it. And I have experts in the field that I'm invested with, partnered with, so that they could, you know, they're more at liberty to answer all the right questions. And how do the mining companies make money? Electricity arbitrage. So they get discounted electricity and they sell it to the miners for a more standard rate. So they make their money on the margin of resale of electricity. So cannabis farms have a lot of electricity. They typically have a discounted rate negotiated in a much more capacity, like 2-3 megawatts of power piped into their cannabis farm. Maybe they're only using 1 megawatt, so they have 2 megawatts of power that they can still utilize, and maybe they're only paying 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And you're selling to the miner, the people that own the mining machines, 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So there's a huge margin in there. Right. So the cannabis guys, they can actually make money on, like, they'll get a commission on selling their power or sharing their power with these mining companies. So there's a lot of plays within the overall play. You can, and I'm getting involved in all of it because I think it's a huge opportunity. I think it's a no-brainer.
You're probably getting a percentage of the Bitcoin that's being mined too.
Nope. Most of them do that. The company I'm with does not do it. They purposely, intentionally, that's how they compete in the market. The company I play with, they don't make money on the machines and they don't touch what you mine.
So they're making enough money through that arbitrage. They're making enough money through that
electricity arbitrage.
Are they using solar as a way of, because I know with solar you can do that. You can,
but the issue is, you know, you would have to have a significant solar power too, because I mean, these machines take a ton of power, right? So, and they're loud and they throw off a lot of heat and they need fans to cool off. There's a whole process to it, but it's funny because that's one of the first questions I asked. I'm like, can we go to a solar farm? You know, and you can, but the strongest play that I see right now is these significant cannabis farms, like out in the Midwest, and it doesn't matter where they are, but I'm talking to a guy in Canada right now. I mean, there's people that have these huge farms and they have discounted power and they have a huge capacity that they're not touching. So it's like a perfect plug and play where we can make them more money every month. They're already making money hand over fist in that industry typically, but if you're making money, you want to make more money, right? Absolutely. So we can share the margin with them, and additionally, the mining is a separate play. Like they're basically fulfilling, you know, a container essentially of mining machines. They want to fill that thing up, plug and play into a location. They drop it and they have somebody come and maintain it. Yeah, and that's it. And it's so stuff like that to me is really interesting. Tokenization of assets. It used to be called NFTs. It's not a sexy way to call it anymore because NFTs have a black eye because that was the first generation of tokenization. Yeah, I still, truth be told, don't completely understand that world. It's a task to, you know, really dive in deep enough to be dangerous, but conceptually, fractionalized ownership of assets is what you were talking about earlier, where you can have a piece of art that's worth $10 million and you say, okay, well, 50% of that value, I'm willing to fractionally share ownership. And now people can buy tokens towards that asset and it'll raise the value of the art, which of course you as the original, let's raise the value. And all these other people have the ability to have a percentage of ownership. So, which opens a lot of can of worms for questions, but I think
it's pretty simple. You just kind of pretty much nailed it, exactly what it is. It's very, like, if you really dove into it, it's not as crazy as what they make it
conceptually,
seem like.
But the actual logistics of assembling, even tokenizing something is not that hard from what I understand. So it's how I've been explained. I'm very fortunate. I'm working with the leaders in that industry right now in Silicon Valley in San Jose, one of my partners, and they, how he explains it to me, it's the ultimate certificate of authenticity.
Yeah.
So if I have this plant and it's, we look at it, it's a decoration, right? But maybe that one, Picasso painted the vase, right? So maybe that one's worth $10 million, $100 million, but we can embed a QR code into it that tokenizes that asset, that
stored in the blockchain,
that shows that you own it. Mm-hmm. And you can actually say, okay, I'm willing to share ownership and sell off fractional ownership to people who potentially want to contribute towards owning that. So as it's like a stock at that point, as the value goes up, they have their ownership piece goes up. So it's you kind of have to have like a certain level of comprehensive skills in the tech world. Just from a business standpoint in general, it's the return on investments is insane, and it's the ultimate tracking system is what they're preaching for tokenization. It's all based on blockchain, which also crypto is based on blockchain. So that whole world to me was super intimidating. It still is to a degree, but I'm at the point now where I realize I'd be a fool to not get involved and to not learn as much as I can, because what I see in that world is, yes, the whole world is going that direction, whether we like it or not. The one world money system, all that stuff, you can go, and hem and haw about it, or you can participate in it and be a founding father, so to speak, of, getting involved in a ground floor level of anything of massive significance. It's generational wealth.
Yeah.
So we can wait as long as we want, hem and haw and drag our nails, or we can get in and say, I want to know everything I can about this. And so I started to invest just enough where I felt comfortable as I'm learning. And then some of my friends that they're like, they started like me, and they're like, I'm going all in.
Wait till they stop putting it in video games, Grand Theft Auto, all these games. You're going to be able to buy buildings that you drive by. The car that you drive, you're going to be able to buy. It's going to be actual asset, actual Bitcoin, actual crypto that you're going to be able to trade with your friends. You're going to be able to buy casinos and make money through the casino. You're going to be able to buy
There's no stopping
clubs.
it. It's
happening. Going that way.
It's literally happening as we speak.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think the average person, where the disconnect is because it's not tangible.
Right.
But if we think about it, how currency started is back in the day, people exchanged their chickens and they didn't have dollars, they didn't have cents,
bartering.
But then we moved to dollars and cents, and that became our tangible. So NFTs, crypto, Bitcoin, it's all the same. It's just not something that we're holding in our pockets.
And that's the hardest thing for people to absorb and conceptualize. Even me, like I said, I didn't just show up and be like, I get it. I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it for months and months and months and months. So I finally got it enough to realize, all right, I get this enough to take a leap of faith to decide what am I comfortable with investing, with still not completely understanding and knowing, but knowing enough that I do see that this is going that way. What can I part with without fear? And that's kind of how I make all my investment decisions. When it's not my project, when it's someone else's, that's kind of how I determine. If I really believe in it, I think, man, this is valid, I think this is going to be a good one, I decide what can I afford to lose? Yeah. And that's how I start. And then as I learn more, I'm like, whoa, maybe I should go in a little heavy. You know what I mean? So
that's the famous saying in crypto is you never invest what you're willing to lose, or you're not willing to lose.
And the thing with crypto I see is a long play. Yeah. I don't see it as, I don't want to day trade. I don't want to sit there and monitor a screen and be
gambling. It's gambling.
I'd rather just put in what I can and just look at it like, okay, let's count this towards retirement. Because if the overall concept is the momentum is shifting where this thing is going to go up, it's going to go down, but ultimately it's going to skyrocket, get as much as you can.
Never
without
ever
hurting
sell.
yourself.
Never ever sell. You're gonna, because here's where a lot of people make that mistake is
I've done it. I know.
When the price drops, you're freaking out. Oh my God, I had 50 grand in my portfolio. Now it's down to 30. Now it's down to 30.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it out so I don't lose more. But when it goes down to 30, you buy more because history repeats itself with crypto. That's one thing I've learned. Out of the many, many things I've learned, and I've learned it all through YouTube, Discord, I've gotten in communities with all people all across the world, and I've really dove into crypto. I spent years and years doing it, and history repeats itself.
Oh, yeah.
If you see, here's a tip. If you see a price of a coin, and it's lower than a price point that it was at before, buy into it because history proves that it will hit that price point again. So if you have a project that's at $5 and the all-time high was $9, it will hit that $9 again. You just have to wait. You have to be patient, and the patient people win in this business.
Oh yeah,
patient people win.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely interesting to see how, the reluctance of the masses, like we said earlier about fear and all that, and it's okay. I don't want to like grandstand and be like, you should do it. I never want to be that guy either.
Right, for sure.
I do what I think is right. Maybe I fail sometimes, but overall, you just hope that you have more wins than losses. You know what I mean? So it's, but some of that stuff, I feel like it's really, it's really education based. You really have to learn. You have to take the time to put down your distractions and, instead of just chalking it up to I don't know and shrugging your shoulders, figure it out. Find out how like anything else, how can you know? How can I learn? And you got to be careful where you get your information sources from. Yeah. There's a lot of information out there. We're in the information age. Like technology, stuff's getting spit out 24/7, and some of it's blind nonsense. And it's. I think it's like gathering information from different sources and filtering what sounds credible and what makes sense, what feels good intuitively. That's how I move.
We're gonna wrap this up. But we got a new segment that we're doing at the end of every show. Now we started this about 3 episodes ago, and this is a perfect fit. Top 3 movies of all time.
Godfather 1. Gladiator.
Yes.
You boxed me in with 3. So let's make this.
I think I usually did 5, right?
Yeah, but
I like 3 though, because it
good...
forces me to really think.
Yeah.
Godfather 1, Gladiator. I'm gonna be simple and say Godfather 2.
What about 3?
I think it's entertaining, but I don't think it. I almost think it shouldn't have been made.
Yeah, I know.
Gladiator 2 just came out.
I didn't see it.
I heard it was good.
I didn't see it.
I heard it was amazing.
I get worried when there's sequels.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
Because especially when a lot of time goes by, because I almost say, why didn't you just call it something else?
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to match something that's already been done so magnificently, it's going to be hard, because it's like you got to overshoot this thing. And like when something hits really hard, like it's an epic novella, like it's
stay
like,
away from it.
Let
it resonate.
But then again, you got to be bold in your choices. So some filmmaker said, you know what, let's do it. And it, but look at like the Tyson Logan Paul fight.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have happened. No. If you're going to do it like that, don't do it.
Money grab.
I think at some point, I think Tyson's going to come clean and be embarrassed that he participated in that.
Probably.
Because he really, at the end of the day, is not going to end up with that much money for tarnishing his legacy.
You know what they made? Did you find out what they made?
He made 20, the other kid made 40, but I'm sure there was more.
170.
170?
Jake made 170. Tyson made like 120.
Wow.
Yeah, when it was all said and done, when they got the numbers in.
Tyson doesn't care anymore. He's at that phase in his life where he just
made his net worth going into that fight was only $5 million, I think. He just quadrupled his net worth in one night. He's thinking future.
I think he definitely could have did more than he did. I think you see all the breakdowns and it's like, wow, he really held back. I think so. And like, even though he looked like crap and shaky legs and all that, I think just physically up top, he could have hurt that.
I think he still would have lost if it ended up going the distance. If it ended up being a real fight and it was a competitive thing, I think he ended up I think Father Time would have beat him on that. But
I think what we're seeing more and more is entertainment. Like a lot of the fighting sports are lost their luster of the authenticity of like gladiator fights. And a lot of them are, unfortunately, a lot of them are bought, and especially the influencer stuff. It's always going to be the fix is in, it's entertainment. They're doing concerts and sponsorship sales, and it's a huge business. Hey, you know what? Salute. Good for them.
That's what I'm saying.
But, a lot of people that tune in naively thinking they're going to see an actual epic battle, you're kind of foolish, The
writing was on the wall. I think everybody kind of, top 3 albums of all time.
Oof. Frank Sinatra, Summer Wind. I'm going to go specific song, I guess. Whatever album that was on. And then I'm a 90s guy, man. I was a hip-hop. I was a standing on the street corner kind of guy. So
Illmatic.
Illmatic, bro.
Illmatic's probably my favorite album of all time.
That's wild because you're 10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
That came out when I was 18.
Yeah.
So I was living the lifestyle that was being spoken on. And I would have to go with some Biggie stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
I was like that
Illmatic.
era, like, you know, Biggie, Nas, even Jay-Z back then.
Nas, yes,
all that stuff,
Nas.
You know, it's funny because I kind of stay with the times. Unfortunately, I'm realizing a lot of modern music is so evil in nature.
It's crap.
It really
it's sad because you get these, you know, catchy songs and sounds, but then when you actually dive into what they're saying, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's like demonic spells and rituals, and it's really force-fed
Even the beats
agendas.
themselves are coding, just like
Energy,
the NLP. Those beats are programming our brains. It does. The words are.
It's actually it's. I try not to live in fear ever, right? But it's scary to think that that's been going on forever.
Yes.
But it's becoming more and more apparent that it's hidden in plain sight. All this stuff's happening. You go to these concerts now, and the whole thing is like fire and hell, and they're wearing horns, and it's like, when did that become the norm?
It's been around forever, but you know what's scary is they're getting better at it.
They're getting better at it, and they're putting it right in our face. And and I think they're at the point now where that whole evil agenda is like, what are you going to do about it?
Right, yeah.
You know, we're controlling the masses. We've always done this. We're putting it more in your face, and there's nothing you can do. So, you know, again, it goes back to the next generation. You got to talk to the kids about it and be like, oh, see that?
Yes.
Is that what you want to be a part of? Or is that what you want to represent? I know you like that song, but let's look at what that song's about.
Yeah.
You kind of have to take it head on and like dissect it. So I do see, you know, these kids are way smarter than we ever were generations before because of the technology. So it's like bittersweet, but you also have to steer the ship and remind them of what your version of morals are and moral fiber and ethics. And if you don't do that at home, they're getting taught that by the computer, by the iPhone, by the TikTok and all that. So their baseline is something different than what yours is, you know?
Let's give a quick shout out for that shirt. I love that shirt. Who makes that?
Yeah, man. I wore this.
Let's pull up his Instagram. It's Valencia.
Yeah, this is Lamont Powell, man. I call him my nephew. He does a lot of good in the world. I'm really proud of him. When I was younger and I was in the boxing gyms here in Rhode Island and my son was boxing and Lamont was a young kid coming up and a little older than my son, but he was always in there training hard and all that. And he does a gloves up, guns down program in Silver Lake at Boletto's old gym. And he's doing a lot of good in the community. And he came out with this clothing line, and he knows that I moved to South Florida. I don't get an opportunity to wear heavy sweatshirts
can you
in
pull
Florida.
it up? It's Valencia LLC on Instagram.
But it's cool. The whole back of this shirt says Providence on it.
Yeah, it looks cool, man.
I did wear it once last winter
right
where it got a little cool in Florida. I was on my motorcycle, and I got some cool photos on my Instagram because I like the fact that it says Providence on it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get that shirt.
It's nice when me being in South Florida. It's funny because there's a lot of there's a lot of New Yorkers there, right? And a lot of people try to pigeonhole me like, hey, you must be from New York. And I'm like, nah. I love New York. I have a lot of friends in New York, but I'm from Providence, man. I always say I'm from Rhode Island. Oh, what's that? And logistically, the way that I explain it nowadays when I'm out abroad, so to speak, I say in between New York and Boston.
There you go.
Because when I'm in Boston, they think I'm from New York. When I'm in New York, they think I'm from Boston because we have the hybrid dialect, right? And that's what makes us special, I think. You know?
I love it. Where can we find you on social media?
So I mostly only play on Instagram. I do have a Facebook, but Instagram at actor Bruce Soscia. Put in actor BRU and you see my big head pop up. And I can't say that I engage as much as I should, but I'll throw up some photos and videos here and there. And when I have a project or, the last couple of movies I was in the trailer, which was an honor. So I put the trailers up. But we do have a new website coming out soon. I haven't launched it yet. It's still in its editing phases, but you're going to see some new stuff coming out of me. For a while, I've just been showcasing the acting and producing side, and I've kind of been in the shadows with the consulting business and the real estate and the crypto mining and tokenization, all those things we talked about. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm going to start putting it out there to the world like, hey, I do this as well. Because I think it's an important part of the story to fill in the blanks of like what makes me tick and where I'm going. Because if I can, like I said, if I can help and share my opportunities with other like-minded individuals. I think that's what my job is, you know, is to boldly declare my faith. And also, it's Patrick Bet David. I was at Mar-a-Lago. I spend a lot of time at Mar-a-Lago lately. That's where I played the pastor of the church. See me with the pulpit? And that's my little church family. And then if you look, Velocity Kings Ride or Die, I'm in that trailer too. That's a motorcycle movie. And there's me and Liam Neeson down the bottom. Awesome. You see me all dirty over there. That's I did my first Western, 1860s. I was on a train. It was really cool to film in a moving train down in Pennsylvania, out in the middle of nowhere. That was pretty cool.
That's a badass shot.
Yeah, that was fun to get all dirty. And those are the things, like, I have no business doing that, but I did it. You know, it was pretty cool. You know, Bruce, I'm in the gym, and
you've inspired me. I hope you've inspired a lot of people listening.
Thank you.
It's been an honor having you on. I appreciate you coming on and trusting us enough to come on and share your story. We really appreciate you having on, and thank you.
Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely, man.
We've got years of friendship to come.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and see you on the next one.